Chapter 997. Ever since Yang Chan failed to trigger the heavenly tribulation using all of his cultivation, he was able to unleash his cultivation freely. He knew that there was still a long way to go before the second tribulation, which made him feel more at ease. Of course, Yang Chen wouldn't be bored to the point of living like a Taoist cultivator, coming and going without a trace. The way of life in the secular world was what he liked the most. Pretending to be an expert wasn't his style. He flew quickly and passed 2 provinces in the blink of an eye. This speed was normal for a soul formation cultivator. When he arrived at an unknown mountain, Yang Cheng waved at Lu Huoding and Hao Changfeng behind him and landed in a forest. The 2 of them were getting impatient. They thought that the Yang family was quite cunning. They were hundreds of kilometers away from Zhonghai, but they still hid so far away. It was early September, and the forest was filled with dark shadows. A crescent moon shone down its silver light. Hao Changfeng and Lu Huoding looked around and didn't find anything special. "Is this where you hid your spirit pill?" Hao Changfeng couldn't find a place to hide it, so he couldn't find anything. Yang Cheng turned around with an evil smile on his face. "Of course not. Then why did you stop here?" Lu Huoding asked unhappily. Yang Cheng shrugged. "Because I don't have any elixir." "What? How dare you make fun of us?" Lu Huoding scolded. She was in her 60s, but her voice sounded like a young girl. Cultivators were indeed mysterious. Yang Cheng didn't care. "I'm just taking my dog for a walk in the middle of the night. What do you do to me? You arrogant Yang family brat. How dare you blaspheme the people of Hongming?" Lu Huoding's face turned red. "Why wouldn't I dare? You're just a bitch who only knows how to make a fuss." Yang Cheng sneered. Hao Changfeng sensed that something was amiss. His expression turned solemn, and one of his hands subconsciously reached for the long sword on his back. "What do you mean by that?" Yang Cheng looked up at the bright moonlight. "Do you know where that sloppy Taoist Huang Yun is now?" The 2 of them remained silent. Yang Cheng pointed at the sky. "I won't say anything else. In any case, you'll be accompanying him in a while." "Not good. Junior apprentice sister, watch out." Hao Changfeng finally realized what Yang Cheng meant. He wanted to silence them. The spirit herbs and Taoist priest Huang Yun's robbery were just excuses to trick them into leaving Zhonghai and coming to this wilderness. If he killed them in Zhonghai, their soul tablets would record the specific location. But in such a godforsaken place, even if they died, no one would think that it was Yang Cheng who killed them. This was also the reason why Yang Cheng wanted to ask about the soul tablet. At the end of the day, the 2 of them were blinded by greed. They thought that Yang Cheng wouldn't dare to do anything to them because they were in Hongming. In order to covet the Shaoyun pill that didn't even exist, they fell for Yang Cheng's trap. It's too late. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Even if I really have a spirit pill, it's not something you can covet. Before Yang Cheng could finish his sentence, he had already appeared in front of the 2 of them. He raised his hand, and a ripple of heaven and earth restoration force gathered in his palm. He then slapped it toward Lu Huoding's head. Although Lu Huoding was only in the mid-stage of soul formation, she had quick reflexes. She barely dodged the attack and quickly retreated. Hao Changfeng saw the opportunity and unsheathed the flying sword on his back. It was a 3-foot-long sword that looked like a rainbow in autumn. Light swirled around the sword like ripples in water. The dark blue blade looked like a sapphire. Mystic water go. Just as Yang Cheng was about to capture Lu Huoding, a sword suddenly flashed in front of him. 3 thick walls made of ice suddenly appeared in front of him. This sword can instantly freeze ice. Although the mystic ice could not stop Yang Cheng from breaking through, it could still create a lot of variables in this battle. After buying some time, Lu Huoding suddenly took out a phoenix tail zither from a summer ring on her finger. The zither was crimson in color, and the carvings on it were lifelike phoenixes. The phoenix feathers on the back of the zither were especially elegant and beautiful. "Humph! How despicable! How dare you sneak attack me?" Lu Huoding said as she held the zither in one hand and plucked the strings with the other. Clang! Clang! 3 sound waves shot out from the zither, and like 3 invisible wind blades, they slashed toward Yang Cheng from 3 different angles. Another Dharma treasure, and to sound wave attack. Yang Chung laughed in his heart. Good, good, good. Use all your Dharma treasures. I'll take them all after I kill you. Yang Chung channeled the heaven and earth restoration power. The power of a soul formation middle stage Dharma treasure was only comparable to that of a soul formation final stage Dharma treasure. He had already passed the first stage of the 9 heavenly lightning tribulation, and he was good at recovery and defense, so there was no way he could dodge it. As soon as the 3 sound wave wind blades touched Yang Chen's shield, they disappeared without a trace. They didn't have any effect at all. How is this possible? My phoenix tail. Lu Huoding had a look of disbelief on her face. Yang Cheng's defense was far beyond what she had imagined. Hao Chongfeng's expression was solemn as he channeled his true origin force and unleashed dozens of frosty sword chi. Streaks of blue sword aura crisscrossed and danced wildly, instantly setting up a frost formation in the forest. Yang Chung snorted coldly, and a shockwave of the heaven and earth restoration power exploded from where he was standing. Boom! Boom! None of the sword chi were able to unleash their full power and were all shattered into pieces. Lu Huoding kept releasing sound waves from the phoenix feather guqin, but it was like scratching an itch for Yang Chun. It didn't have any effect at all. It was not that the 2 Dharma treasures were too weak. It was just that their cultivation was much lower than Yang Cheng's, so they could not unleash the full power of the Dharma treasures. If Yang Cheng was at the first stage of the 3 Yang fire tribulation, they might be able to compete with him with their Dharma treasures. However, Yang Cheng was at the highest level of tribulation transcendence power that they could never imagine. Junior sister, run. Hao Chongfeng realized that they were going to die sooner or later, so he immediately shouted at Lu Huoding to run away. Lu Huoding also realized that they were going to die. She was very alert and ran toward the densely populated south instead of the west where Hongmeng was located. As long as she ran into a crowded place, even if Yang Cheng wanted to kill someone, he would have to bear the risk of being found out. However, Yang Cheng would not let them have their way. Since he was already here, he had already made full preparations. Hao Chongfeng controlled the Xianshui flying sword to scatter countless blue ice blades, thinking that it could temporarily slow down Yang Chen's speed and allow him to escape. However, he didn't expect that a few balls of golden red flames would appear out of nowhere and engulf the 2 of them. Nanmingli fire? Hao Chongfeng screamed as if he had seen a ghost. Get out of the way. Lu Huoding's face was pale as well. She ran away with her Shixiao. More than 10 balls of giant golden flames danced in the sky like small suns, dazzling to the eyes. The scorching heat that was mixed with the flames sent chills down their spines. Be obedient and die. I don't want my Dharma treasures to suffer. Yang Chung chuckled. In his heart, he was exhilarated. He really did not know that he had a treasure without knowing it. It turned out that the heaven and earth restoration energy could be used in this way. The heaven and earth restoration energy was not an extremely powerful attack. However, it was one with heaven and earth. It could be used to attack enemies with the power of heaven and earth. Although he had only experienced a little bit of the old man's power, it was enough to make these 2 deity transformation stage idiots suffer greatly and be stuck between a rock and a hard place. The Nanmingli fire was only the first level of the 3 Yang fire tribulation, but it was not something that these 2 people could withstand. Hao Chongfeng and Lu Huoding had not even reached the level of tribulation transcendence. How could they not be frightened by the heavenly fire? Young master of the Yang family, we know we were wrong. Please have mercy on us. Hao Chongfeng was flexible. Seeing that the situation was not good and that he would be killed sooner or later, he began to beg for mercy. But Yang Chen wouldn't listen to him. If the 2 of them didn't die today, he would definitely be besieged by Hongmeng. Not only would he kill the 2 of them, he wouldn't let even a trace of their souls go. After the encirclement of a dozen or so Nanmingli fireballs, the 2 of them were already badly battered as they were surrounded in a small area of the sky. This heavenly fire was not ordinary. If they did not have enough true core strength to withstand it, they would be severely injured. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for them to escape. Lu Huiting's foam feather zither flashed with red light. She kept releasing sound waves to control the fire so that it would not get too close to them. However, the woman was at the end of her rope. Her true core strength was being suppressed to the point that it could not keep up with her output. On the other hand, Hao Changfeng's mystic water sword qi could only evaporate in an instant. They were completely useless. Yangqing looked at them mockingly. He changed his mind, and the more than 10 balls of Nanming leaf fire suddenly gathered together. A huge fire dragon, which was more than 10 feet long, wrapped around the two of them and began to grow. After gathering more Nanming leaf fire, the high temperature made it difficult for them to breathe. Lu Huiting stared at Yang Cheng viciously. You will die a horrible death. You cheated. Yang Cheng did not bother to pay attention to her. His figure flashed, and he entered the blazing area surrounded by the fire dragon. However, as a spellcaster, Yang Cheng would not be hurt at all. A jet of Nanming leaf fire was spat out from the fire dragon's mouth. The golden flames condensed into a long sword of fire. Chapter 998. Yang Cheng stepped in the air and arrived in front of the two of them. He was like an executioner, looking at the two dead people without the slightest emotion. Hao Changfeng put down his sword in despair. He already knew that no matter how much he struggled, he would definitely die tonight. Can you tell me why? Even if we are greedy, we have never thought of harming you. If someone else wants to kill me, then I will kill them. You can say that I am a devil, that I am cruel, but I am already used to it. To me, as long as someone disobeys my will and makes me unhappy, I will kill them if I want to. You can say that I am a devil, that I am cruel, but I am already used to it. This is me. As long as I and the people I care about can live a good life, I don't care if you die. What do you think you can get out of this? Even if you snatch our treasures and elixirs, Hong Meng will find you sooner or later. At that time, do you think you'll be able to resist the joint attacks of those Earth rank and Heaven rank elders? Lu Huiting said resentfully. Yang Cheng sneered. Even if I want to pretend that you guys don't exist, there are already people looking for trouble with me. Instead of waiting for death, it is better to make the first move. You will regret it. Thank you for your concern, but I don't need it. Also, you don't have to worry about being lonely over there, because in the near future, I will kill all those who dare to disobey me. After Yang Cheng finished speaking, the long sword formed by the Nanming leaf fire in his hand slashed down with a loud bang. Hao Changfeng and Lu Huiting were unable to dodge it all. The powerful pressure and the Nanming leaf fire surrounded them, and they were instantly engulfed by the flames. After all, the two of them were only ordinary soul formation cultivators, and their bodies were not as strong as Yang Cheng's. Their bodies were definitely weaker than magic treasures. After Yang Cheng killed the two of them, he took the black water-flying sword, the phoenix feather zither, and Lu Huiting's mustard seed summer ring. After probing the spatial ring with his divine sense, he found that it really was a good thing. It was a small space in a parallel space, but it still had a volume of more than 10 cubic meters. What made Yang Cheng a little happy was that there were a bunch of unknown cultivation materials and medicinal pills inside. Perhaps he could collect them all and find time to ask that Si Yao Qiqing. That woman claimed to be a cultivation encyclopedia. She should be able to tell him what these things were used for. After winning the battle, Yang Cheng felt refreshed. After making sure that no one within a radius of a few hundred miles would notice what happened here, Yang Cheng finally returned to Zhonghai. After that, Hong Meng would immediately know that the two special envoys were dead, and it was only a matter of time before they sent a new envoy. At that time, it would naturally be a good thing if they couldn't find out that he was the culprit. He could buy time to strengthen himself and the people around him. If they found out that he was the culprit, he could just think of a way to get rid of him. For Yang Cheng, whose goal was to kill his way into the illusion and plunder everything from Hong Meng and the hidden families, this was just an appetizer. After returning to Zhonghai, Yang Cheng had a comfortable sleep, and no one would notice what he went out to do that night. The next morning, breakfast at home seemed to be more lively than usual. Not only would Hui Lin stay these 2 days, but also Lan Lan and Min Wan. Suddenly, there were 7 women, old and young, in the house. Although because Lan Lan called her grandma, Guixuehua was completely intoxicated by the happiness of being a cheap grandma when she saw this little girl eat 3 steamers of buns and drink half a pot of porridge. Guixuehua's smile stiffened. After hearing Lin Ruashi's explanation, Guixuehua then realized that Lan Lan was gifted. Involuntarily, Guixuehua looked at her son strangely. Yang Cheng, don't tell me you agreed to accept Lan Lan as your daughter, because she's as special as you. Guixuehua asked. Yang Cheng was fighting with the little girl for the last fried bun. Both of their forks were entangled on it. I'd rather she was an ordinary child. At least she wouldn't fight with me for food. This morning, Lan Lan had 2 pigtails. She was wearing a blue floral dress with Lin Ruashi's help. She looked very cute, but at this moment, she puffed up her cheeks and said in a coquettish voice, "Bad uncle is not a father. Lanlan's father won't fight with Lan Lan for food." Lin Ruashi quickly slapped Yang Cheng's wrist and said unhappily, "You're not allowed to fight with Lan Lan. Children need to grow up. You don't need to eat at all. Yet you keep eating so much. It's not like you'll die if you eat less." Yang Cheng wanted to cry, but no tears came out. How was he going to live? He even had to endure eating now. However, he was afraid of his wife deep in his bones, so Yang Cheng reluctantly retracted his hand. Jinxiu and Hui Lin were watching from the side and snickered. "Brother Yang, your position in Sister Ruashi's heart seems to have dropped by another level." Jinxiu blinked and said. Yang Cheng felt a headache coming on and glared at the girl. "Don't make sarcastic remarks. I haven't told you yet. When I send you to school later, I have to inspect your surroundings." When Jinxiu heard this, she immediately became unhappy and said, "What do you mean by inspecting the environment? Isn't it just military training? I still remember that you were bullied by someone in high school. Also, the most important thing is, did those military instructors take advantage of you?" Yang Cheng asked seriously. Jinxiu blushed. "Brother Yang, why are you thinking about this? Everyone is watching. How could there be an instructor who would do such a thing?" Lin Ruashi, who was wiping the corner of Lanlan's mouth with a towel, turned her head and snorted with an expressionless face. "Other than this, I won't think about anything else." Yang Cheng rubbed his nose to hide his embarrassment. Actually, there was another reason for going to Zhonghai University, which was to look for Xiao Qiqing so that he could appraise the things he got last night. However, it was not good to let Lin Ruashi know about this. Who knew? Just as he was thinking about this, Lin Ruashi said lightly, "I don't care what you want to ask, but it's best if nothing else happens." Yang Cheng felt a chill down his spine and smiled stiffly at Lin Ruashi. "Wife, why do you seem to know how to read minds?" Lin Ruashi didn't look at him directly. "Even if I read it, I might not be able to control it." Yang Cheng was speechless for a while. Lin Ruashi was obviously jealous of him. Obviously, she was still unhappy that he went to see Xiao Qiqing. However, Xiao Qiqing could indeed help her, so it was not good for him to stop her. Although the two of them had been intimate for more than a year and a half since yesterday afternoon, and their relationship had improved a lot, Lin Ruashi was already having a hard time tolerating her current number of lovers. If there were any more, the balance in her heart would be broken again. After breakfast, Hui Lin went to talk about the script with director Yu Shua, and Lin Ruashi had just returned to Zhonghai, so naturally, she had a lot of things to do. Lan Lan could only continue to be taken care of by Min Wan. Fortunately, Guixuehua and Mother Wang played with the little girl, so Lan Lan didn't feel too bored. She watched cartoons on the digital TV at home, and the day passed quickly. Yang Cheng drove to Zhonghai University with Jinxiu. While chatting in the car, Yang Cheng suddenly thought of Tang Tang, who he hadn't seen for a long time. As her mother's man, Yang Cheng had to care about his sister-in-law, who had a complicated relationship with him. "Jinxiu, did you see Tang Tang at school?" Jinxiu shook her head. "I don't think Tang Tang participated in the military training. Even if she didn't participate, the school wouldn't dare to say anything." Yang Cheng secretly shook his head. Maybe Yuan Yi spoiled her and helped Tang Tang escape from the military training. But it was also possible that Tang Tang was busy with other things after the major change in the Tang family. When they arrived at the training ground for freshmen at Zhonghai University, Yang, Cheng, and Jinxiu got out of the car, and they attracted a lot of attention. It was not anything else but the BMW X6 that Yang, Cheng drove had a 4 displacement configuration, which sold for more than 2 million in Huaxia. A young man coming out of such a car with a beautiful first-year girl was the first thing that came to everyone's mind in a place like a school for gossip. They couldn't think of any other possibility besides keeping him. Because the military training hadn't started, a few girls who knew Jinxiu since the beginning of the school had come up with strange smiles. They surrounded Jinxiu and looked at Yang Cheng and the luxury car with envious eyes. Jinxiu, you're really good at pretending. You said you were going to work during the summer vacation. Your boyfriend drives a big BMW. Yeah, what does your family do? Are there any handsome guys that you can introduce to us? The girls whispered and asked. When the whispers reached Yang Cheng's ears, it made Yang Cheng feel a little smug. So I can also be considered a handsome guy? In fact, Yang Cheng also had a generation gap with these young girls. Today, who drove a 2 million car to send a girl to school. Even Zhu Beiji could be called a handsome guy. Jinxiu's face was red, and her beautiful oval face was especially bright. She shyly glanced at Yang Cheng and quickly explained, "Don't misunderstand, that's my sister's husband. It's just that we live together, and he sent me to the military training today, brother-in-law? Who would believe that? He looks like he's in his 20s. Why do I think he's the same age as us? Su Jinxiu, you're too mean. If you have money, just say it. Why are you pretending to be poor?" The girls didn't believe it at all. It was true that Yang Cheng was too young. Most of the boys at his age were still in graduate school. How could he be their brother-in-law? At this moment, a few tall boys wearing military camouflage uniforms walked over. When the girls saw these boys, they were a little scared and quieted down. They turned to look at Yang Cheng with some worry. The one in front had ear-length hair and silver earrings. His face was relatively sharp, and he looked a little cold. He glanced at Yang Cheng with disdain and then asked Jinxiu with a naughty smile, "Jinxiu, this man is the reason why you rejected me?" Chapter 999. When Jinxiu saw this group of boys, she did not cower like the other girls. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of helplessness. "You Zipeng, how many times have I told you that I don't like you? And it has nothing to do with others." This trendy man called you Zipeng obviously did not believe her, and smiled evilly. "There is no such thing as liking for no reason, and there is no such thing as disliking for no reason. There must be some reason why you are unwilling to be my girlfriend. The more you refuse to admit it, the more it proves that you care." Jinxiu touched her forehead with a headache, stroked her silky hair, and turned to Yang Cheng. "Brother Yang, didn't you say that you were worried that I would be bullied? Then does being harassed count?" Yang Cheng listened with interest. Hearing this, he could not help but smile amiably at Yuzipa. "Young man, are you Jinxiu's classmate?" When the students heard Yang Cheng ask Yu Zipeng in the tone of an elder, they couldn't help but open their mouths in a daze. Yu Zipeng frowned in extreme displeasure. "Humph, you really think you're something. What, do you want to be an elder and teach me to leave Jinxiu? Is there something wrong with your head? That's not right. Jinxiu wouldn't fall for a retard, would she?" When he said this, the group of followers and the students at the side all began to mock him. Yang Cheng originally only wanted to get close to Jinxiu's classmates, but he did not expect that his words could be mistaken as unfriendly. "You Zipeng, you are not allowed to speak nonsense about my brother Yang." Jinxiu was very dissatisfied that Yang Cheng was being ridiculed and immediately replied with a frown. Yu Zipeng's eyes were a little sullen. "You still said that it has nothing to do with this man, and you've exposed yourself. He is my family. Of course I can't be scolded by you." "Family? Do you think you're playing house?" Yu Zipeng said disdainfully. "I thought you, Su Jinxiu, were different, but you're still the same as my previous girlfriends. Once you fall for a rich man, no matter how country bumpkin he is, it's like picking up a treasure. If you talk nonsense again, I'll beat you up." Jinxiu's pretty face was already filled with anger. Yang Cheng, who was at the side, was secretly delighted. This last was more well-behaved in front of ordinary students, but she was very open to this guy who looked like a delinquent. From the looks of it, she was really going to fight. Of course, The fact that Yang Cheng was by her side made Jinxiu feel particularly embarrassed. The bad girl factor that had not erupted for a long time had a tendency to recover. At this time, Yang Cheng reached out and patted the girl's shoulder, comforting her. Don't make it look like a cockfight. University has just started. Why are you fighting? This is Yu Zipeng, right? You misunderstood. I am really Jinxiu's brother-in-law. Today, I sent her to military training to see her learning environment. Yu Zipeng looked at Yang Cheng suspiciously. Are you serious? You are really suspicious. Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Do you want me to take out my marriage certificate for you to see? My wife is very beautiful, and Jinxiu hasn't even grown up yet. How can I like her? Brother Yang, don't joke around. Jinxiu was angry. She turned her head and screamed, and her pink face turned red. The surrounding girls giggled. This time, everyone believed that the two of them were not in a relationship. Otherwise, this drama would be too ridiculous. Yu Zipeng's eyes relaxed a little, and he smiled proudly. Since you are not Jinxiu's man, then we will let you go today, but you better give Jinxiu some psychological counseling. No woman that I, Yu Zipeng, fancy can escape from my palm. Jinxiu looked at him with disgust. You are so disgusting. Do you really think I don't dare to hit you? Come on. Yu Zipeng thought that he was very cool and brushed the long bangs in front of his forehead, tilted his head and spread out his hands. I like your ruthlessness. It must be very exciting in bed. All right, Jinxiu, you're still a virgin, right? I see that your legs are quite tight, huh? The few tall boys who followed him laughed, and some of the girls around them blushed. Jinxiu clenched her two small fists, and she was trembling with anger. She turned her head and said to Yang Cheng, Brother Yang, can I hit him? Yang Cheng scratched his chin, but he shook his head. You can't hit him. How can a girl hit someone so casually? In the future, everyone will know that you are so violent, and guys will not dare to chase you anymore. Jinxiu did not expect Yang Cheng to say this, and she was a little unhappy. She bit her lips, and her heart was sour and bitter. Yu Zipeng did not hear what the two of them said, but he saw that Jinxiu was angered, and she was restraining herself. Her willowy eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and he revealed a bit of infatuation. Originally, Jinxiu had a mixed-race face, and the lines were particularly clear. Her skin was fair and tender, and she had a good figure, which was quite in line with the aesthetic standards of these guys who had just entered university. If she were to be posted on the internet, she would be the goddess of otakus. Moreover, Jinxiu's usual dressing and lifestyle were relatively simple. In one look, and one could tell that she was not the daughter of a rich or powerful family, and it would not be difficult for her to get a hold of her. Therefore, as soon as she entered university, many guys had their eyes on Jinxiu, and Yu Zipeng was of course one of the strongest contenders. Jinxiu, accompany me out for a day today. I will bring you to buy a Chanel bag. You can choose any price you want. Isn't your bag quite old? Yu Zipeng said confidently. When the surrounding girls heard that they were going to buy a branded bag for Jinxiu, they couldn't help but reveal envious expressions. After all, many girls were still looking for a boyfriend with the idea of taking advantage of their youth to earn more money. One look, and you could tell that Yu Zipeng was a playboy, but with money, everything was fine. Moreover, he was actually not bad looking. Keep your money to fool others. I want to participate in military training. Jinxiu didn't want to talk to him anymore. Yu Zipeng raised his eyebrows and said, What the hell is military training? I just need to tell my dad, and these bullshit instructors' officers, won't they still have to obediently add soles to my shoes? When Yang Cheng heard this, he couldn't help but ask curiously, Who is your dad? Yu Zipeng didn't reply, but gestured to the lackeys behind him. A boy with a rough voice immediately reported and said boldly, Our brother Zipeng's father is the principal of our university. When he said that, it was as if the principal was his father. Many of the surrounding students exclaimed in surprise, and some of them already knew about it, but they looked helpless. Zhonghai University was one of the top universities in Huaxia. To be able to become the principal of this university with hundreds of thousands of students and teachers, it was only natural that he wasn't an ordinary person. Usually, The principal would be appointed by the higher government officials. Not only was the principal of the university a high official of the government, Yang Cheng turned his head and asked Jinxiu, "Is what he said true?" Jinxiu nodded, looking bored. "Our principal is called Yu Weibing. When he first saw me, he said that he was the principal's son. Some of my classmates also mentioned him, so it should be true." Yang Cheng's expression turned ugly when he heard this. How can this be? The principal has to be replaced. When the surrounding people heard this, it was as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. A fierce look flashed in Yu Ziping's eyes, and he said with a sinister smile, "What did you just say?" There was a hint of threat in his tone. Yang Chen didn't care at all, and unhappily said, "If the headmaster's son is like this, how can he teach the students? This won't do. I have to bring him to see his father now, then get you a proper headmaster." Yang Cheng didn't think much of it, but he felt that Jinxiu had spent so much effort to get into the university, so she should have an excellent teaching environment. Wasn't it nonsense to be harassed by these guys all day? However, in the eyes of the people around him, he didn't know how to spell the word death. Sure enough, Yu Ziping was already burning with anger, and he shouted at the group of lackeys behind him, "What are you waiting for? Go and beat this bastard to death." Chapter 1000. As soon as they heard that they could make a move, how could this group of ruffians, who followed Yu Ziping, be lenient? 7 or 8 people rushed directly to Yang Cheng's side. Jinxiu wasn't worried about Yang Cheng's safety at all. She just felt that these guys were too pitiful. Yang Cheng had clearly switched to a one-track mind mode at this time. If he said he wanted to change the principal, no one could stop him. A few punks rushed up. Before they could swing their fists at Yang Cheng's face, Yang Cheng had already taken a step forward from an angle that no one expected. He turned around and swept the back of a few students' legs with his toes. These delinquents had relied on Yu Ziping's connections to sneak into the school. Although they weren't very good academically, they were famous for being ruthless in the market. They didn't expect that they wouldn't even be able to see clearly before their legs went numb and they fell to their knees. Yang Cheng naturally wouldn't really make a move on them. Even if he didn't care about hurting people and bleeding in front of so many onlookers, Jinxiu would always be regarded as a different species in the future. Therefore, after a few dexterous turns, the legs of these punks were numb. Kneeling in front of so many people was definitely a huge psychological humiliation for these guys who cared about their reputation. Yu Ziping's eyes were glued to the fight. Due to his father, Yu Weibing, he had seen some fierce soldiers in the special forces, but he had never seen Yang Chen's skills, which he couldn't even see clearly. He only felt that his vision was blurred, and the group of underlings all knelt down. Although he admired Yang Cheng from the bottom of his heart and wanted to kneel down to learn from him, Yu Ziping knew that there was absolutely no turning back. Seeing Yang Cheng approaching him, Yu Ziping subconsciously took 2 steps back, but he thought that it was wrong. Wouldn't I be admitting defeat? How could I live in the future? So he straightened his back and went up to him, shouting, "You're quite good at fighting. If you have the guts, wait for my dad to send someone over. He'll throw you into jail and beat you until you're crippled." Yang Cheng's face was solemn as he asked, "Where's your father? Take me to him." Yu Ziping was stunned. He wondered if this guy was really sick in the head. Was he really going to tell his father that he wanted to change the principal? "Is my dad someone you can meet whenever you want?" Yu Ziping said disdainfully. Without saying a word, Yang Cheng slapped Yu Ziping's face. If Yang Cheng had not deliberately used less force, Yu Ziping would have at least knocked him out. The surrounding students were all dumbfounded. Some of them admired him, while others felt pity for him. They felt that Yang Cheng was finished this time. Jinxiu, on the other hand, stood there helplessly. She was not worried about Yang Cheng, but Yang Cheng's attitude just now made her feel a little uncomfortable. On the other side, Yu Ziping staggered a few steps back in a daze. He touched his left cheek. It was burning. It was obviously swollen. "You hit me? You. Even my dad hasn't hit me. How dare you hit me?" Yang Cheng frowned and said, "I'm asking where your dad is. What nonsense are you spouting?" Yu Ziping was anxious. This guy really didn't care about his friends and family. He quickly took out the iPhone in his pocket. The case was still a trendy one with a big skull on it. As he dialed the number, Yu Zipping stood as far away from Yang Cheng as possible. He pointed and scolded. Just you wait, I'll call my dad. If I don't make you look like a pig today and bleed a few kilograms of blood, don't even think about leaving this door. On the drill ground, the students were already in an uproar. Because Yu Zipping was the principal's son and had an extraordinary background, the instructors did not dare to announce the start of military training. On the other side, in the center of Zhonghai University, in a modern high-rise building that stood amidst the lush greenery, the headmaster's office on the top floor was a different scene. In the huge office, the decorations were gorgeous. The office furniture that was worth hundreds of thousands of yuan was placed, and the air was filled with the fragrance of natural wood. On a few crystal-clear booths, there were countless glittering cups and medals, all of which were polished to a golden shine. On a soft leather swivel chair, a middle-aged man with a square face and bright eyes was wearing a black suit and a scarlet tie. He was talking to the guests with a familiar smile. The only guest in the office was a middle-aged man who was also wearing a suit and had a rather handsome appearance. However, the man's expression was much friendlier. Old Fong, do you need to personally come over for your daughter's matter? Isn't it just delaying school? With our relationship, you could just make a phone call. This man, surnamed Fong, was Tong Tong's biological father, Fong Zhongping. Fong Zhongping smiled amiably and said, Old you don't know, but my daughter is very naughty. She was very pitiful since she was young. She clearly has a father and a mother, but she has to run away from them. She doesn't even have a few meals together. So, her mother and I almost spoil her, buy her whatever she wants, and don't let her be bullied at all. If it wasn't for the fact that she was born smart, it would be a problem for her to get into university. In this Zhonghai University, there are a lot of pampered people. Which one of them isn't their own treasure? If my daughter causes any trouble, in order to prevent her from being expelled from the school, I still have to meet you and let you know. Yu Weibing laughed strangely. You and the young miss of the Tang family still didn't end up together in the end? Fong Zhongping's expression turned awkward, and he sighed. The falling flowers are yearning for the heartless river. I don't ask for these anymore. It's worth it to have a daughter with her. TSK, you're useless. Back then, when we were training in the army, you went out to find a woman. Only you didn't have the guts, and you're still like this now. My daughter is already so big, and I haven't even settled it as a mother. Yu Weibing shook his head. Fong Zhongping Shanshan smiled, as expected of an old comrade who understands me. Yu Weibing sighed. I heard that the Tang family has changed, and the central government has blocked the news. Our old Yu family is far away from Beijing, so we don't know much. Your daughter and her mother should be busy with the Tang family's matters, right? Fong Zhongping's expression changed slightly. Old Yu, this matter. Let's stop here. Don't look into it too deeply. It's not good for you to know more. Yu Weibing snorted lightly. What's there to be afraid of? The four major families in Beijing are changing dynasties. What does it have to do with us? We can't participate. Can't we just talk about it? Fong Zhongping smiled and didn't say much. I'm really not interested in the Tang family's matters, but I heard Commander Yang Pejuan has been suspended, and the one in charge of the Jiangnan military is the deputy commander. Is this true? A strange light flashed in Fong Zhongping's eyes, but he still nodded. Yes. Why did you mention this? I heard that the Yang family found their eldest grandson, a young man named Yang Cheng, and he is now in Zhonghai. You're the secretary of the municipal party committee, and you're close to the Yang family's vassal, the Yuan family. You should have known about this, right? Fong Zhongping frowned. Old Yu, don't tell me you still want to go back to Beijing. I'm just asking, why are you in such a hurry? Yu Weibing smiled lightly. As an old comrade, let me give you a piece of advice. Fong Zhongping said, if you want to get the support of the Yang family through Yang Cheng and go back to Beijing, you will only be asking for trouble. Yang Cheng is not the kind of person you think he is. He is different from others. Yu Weibing smiled, and when he was about to take out a special Panda Bear cigarette to relieve his craving, his phone rang. He picked it up, and his face darkened after a few seconds. Humph, good for nothing. All right, I will call your brother Lu over. Just wait for me. Fong Zhongping looked at him in confusion, and when Yu Weibing put down the phone, he asked, What happened? Do you need me to help? There's no need for that. An insensible guy hit my son, Yu Weebing said. That's it. You can just hand it over to the police. Why send Alor? Fang Zhongping did not know whether to laugh or cry. Although he's a good-for-nothing kid, he's my only lifeline. If I don't settle the matter after being beaten up, won't others think that my son is a pushover? Fang Zhongping smiled bitterly. Aren't you spoiling Zipping too much? After all, he is a boy. Yu Weebing let out a deep sigh, feeling a little melancholy. I also know that this child is a little overboard outside, but it is okay for a young boy to be a little hot-blooded. My son is not bad in nature. Fang Zhongping was secretly disdainful, but he still nodded with a smile on his face. There was no reason to make things difficult for him as a father, as long as he did not provoke his precious daughter. By the way, you haven't seen Zipeng for a while. Why don't we have lunch together today? After all, Zipeng will be your daughter's classmate in the future. Yu Weebing stood up and said. Fang Zhongping immediately smiled warily and said, Old Yu, our Tang Tang is already engaged to Yuan Yi of the Yuan family. Don't think too much. Yu Weebing said unhappily, You are the one who thinks too much. I don't want to find a daughter-in-law as disobedient as your daughter. Only the Yuan family would be willing to accept her. Let's go, I want to see who dares to hit my son. Fang Zhongping felt a little sad in his heart. Although this old man usually looked gentle and refined, he was famous for his bad temper in the army. His infatuated wife passed away after giving birth to his only son. For more than 10 years, he had never remarried, and his love for his only son was evident. Today, who was so unlucky to provoke someone, but to hit the son of his old comrade, he was really unlucky. When he thought of the bodyguard Alor who worked hard for him, his skills and physique, Fang Zhongping's heart trembled a little. Chapter 1001. On the drill ground, Yang Cheng waited for Yu Zipeng to finish his phone call. He was not in a hurry to go up. Since he called the principal he was looking for, he just had to wait. While waiting, Yang Cheng caught Jinxiu and asked her to introduce him to the new classmates she knew in class. Jinxiu was quite popular. After all, she looked quite pleasant and didn't have a temper like other beautiful girls. Jinxiu, who was more mature, was easier to talk to. Many girls got along well with her at the beginning of school. However, the role of brother-in-law, Yang Cheng, made everyone a little afraid. So when the students greeted Yang Cheng, they subconsciously stood a little further away. But Yang Cheng didn't care. As long as he confirmed that Jinxiu was indeed like an ordinary university student, she had no problem in socializing and getting along well with the students around her. Then he would have achieved his purpose of coming here. After less than 5 minutes, there was some noise in the crowd. It seemed that they were discussing someone approaching, but they didn't dare to say it out loud. The students naturally opened up a path, and a burly figure walked out from it. And Yu Zipeng, who had been waiting nervously, shouted in surprise, Brother Lu, here! As if all the pressure had been vented, Yu Zipeng became arrogant again. The man who was called Brother Lu looked at least 9 meters tall. His facial features were regular, but his eyebrows were full of a murderous aura. He was wearing a black suit, but he was meticulous. He was wearing a pair of shiny leather shoes, and his gait was full of vigor. Seeing Yu Zipeng, the man didn't show any expression and just nodded symbolically. Young master, who is it? This question was asked without rhyme or reason, but it was extremely straightforward. Yu Zipeng seemed to be used to this big man's way of speaking. He pointed at Yang Cheng, who was talking nonsense with a few girls. It's him. That guy beat up all my brothers. Being pointed at like this, Yang Cheng reluctantly waved to a few of Jinxiu's female classmates and slowly walked to the center of the crowd. The man also walked forward, his hawk-like gaze swept across Yang Chen's body a few times. What made him feel strange was that this man didn't seem to have any signs of practicing martial arts. Yet he felt that this man was extremely troublesome. Of course, the man didn't feel that he was going to lose. On the other hand, Yang Chen was able to see through this big fella's abilities with a single glance. What made Yang Chen a little surprised was that this big fella actually cultivated internal energy. Although it was only at the Hotian stage, if he was placed in the army, he would probably be considered a small ace. Why would he be a hired thug for a principal? Alor, what's your name? The man asked. Yang Chang smiled amiably. There's no need to tell me your name in a fight. We're not making friends in the future anyway. Alor frowned. His eyes showed some interest. I don't think there's a need to fight. If you know what's good for you, kneel down and kowtow to our young master. Otherwise, I can only cripple your arms and legs. Yang Chang was a little stunned. He didn't expect to meet someone who was more pretentious than him today. It couldn't be helped. Yang Chang was embarrassed to make the first move against a guy who only practiced martial arts, so he could only beckon Alor with his finger. Do it yourself. I'm too embarrassed to take the initiative to beat you up, Yang Chang said gloomily. Alor was stunned at first, then he was a little angry. This guy really didn't put him in his eyes. He gave him a good path, but he didn't take it. This guy refused a toast only to drink a forfeit. Brother Lo, go. Beat him to death. He's so shameless. Let him bleed a few kilograms. Yu Zipping shouted at the side. In his eyes, Alor would never lose. Alor glared at him with a mixture of anger and killing intent, making Yu Zipping shut up obediently. He took 2 steps forward and flexed his fists. His bones made a cracking sound. You're unlucky today. You provoked someone you shouldn't have. I won't take your life, but you better ask your family to call an ambulance for you. Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Why do you talk so much nonsense when you're fighting? A hint of fierceness flashed in Alor's eyes. He didn't say anything else and rushed forward like a black lightning. He raised his sandbag-sized fist and didn't use any internal energy. He used pure strength to punch Yang Cheng's stomach. Yang Cheng estimated that the strength of this punch should be equivalent to 2,000 kilograms. This Alor did have some skills. Unfortunately, he met him. Alor thought that this punch would send Yang Cheng flying at least 3 to 4 meters. He didn't expect that when the punch landed on Yang Cheng's stomach, it was like hitting a thick dam made of reinforced concrete. The surrounding students couldn't bear to watch. Although Jinxiu wasn't worried, she closed her eyes subconsciously. When the crowd realized that Alor's fist had landed on Yang Cheng's stomach but didn't cause the slightest ripple, they all opened their mouths wide. Al was also dumbfounded. He even suspected that he was dreaming. How is this possible? Yang Cheng yawned. The strength of his body was not something that a martial artist could imagine. In the past, it was purely the God Stone's modification. Now, the endless resolve restoration scripture was manipulating the heaven and earth restoration energy to refine his body. It could be said that his body's strength was several times stronger than those clone bodies. After a moment of shock, Alor's combat instinct made him activate his internal energy. He gathered all his internal energy and threw a left hook at Yang Cheng's chin. However, before the fist could touch Yang Cheng's chin, Yang Cheng had already used his right hand to block it with a finger. Ali's punch with all his might stopped him midair. It had been blocked. Yang Cheng said unhappily, "Why did you change to hitting my face? If you hit other places, I'll let you hit me a few more times. Hitting my face is the same as ruining my career. Don't you know that I have a lot of women to accompany?" This shameless excuse made people roll their eyes, causing many students to almost collapse. Jinxiu's face turned red. She could understand why Lin Ruoshi was always so angry. As for Yu Zipeng, who was waiting for Alor to get back at him, his legs were so weak that he almost fell to the ground. Alu, on the other hand, felt deeply humiliated and trembled with anger. "You're messing with me. Come on, I'm not interested in men. You're much stronger than me. Why are you still pretending?" "Because the main character isn't here," Yang Cheng said in boredom. Suddenly, he noticed something and grinned. "All right, I think we're here." Yang Cheng did not want to wait any longer. He reached out and grabbed Alor's wrist and twisted it. Alor screamed in pain. His wrist was broken. "I won't pursue those harsh words from before. Break one of your hands." As Yang Chen spoke, he spun around nimbly, as if he was throwing a hammer, and flung the 9-meter-tall man away. Alor could not control his body at all. His muscular body, which was nearly 200 kilograms, was like a human cannonball. He flew more than 10 meters away and drew a high parabola. When Alor was about to land, the place where he landed happened to be 2 middle-aged men in suits and leather shoes. "Master, be careful," When Allor saw who he was about to hit, he immediately shouted in the air. Yu Weibing, who was walking over with Fang Zhongping, was also shocked. Fortunately, he had trained in martial arts before, so he nimbly stepped back and avoided the explosion. What's going on? Yu Weibing asked angrily. Allor fell and tumbled. Fortunately, he had thick skin and cultivated internal energy. Other than his broken wrist, he did not suffer many injuries. He quickly got up and reported, Master, that guy is an expert. I am no match for him. When Yu Weibing heard this, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He passed through the crowd and looked at Yang Cheng, who was standing there with a smile. Fang Zhongping, who was with him, was also shocked. As far as he knew, Allor was the trump card of the Jiangnan military special forces. If he had not made some mistakes in the discipline and been saved by Yu Weibing, he would not have retired and worked for Yu Weibing. However, when Fang Zhongping saw that the person standing there was actually Yang Cheng, he immediately had a complicated expression on his face and did not know whether to laugh or cry. Dad, you're finally here. It's this guy who hit me. Yu Ziping found a life-saving straw again. He quickly rushed to his father's side, pointed at his swollen face, and cried. Yu Weibing's eyebrows twitched. He pushed his good-for-nothing son aside and strode forward. His eyes were sharp, and with the awe of a superior, he said in a deep voice, Do you know the consequences of going against the Yu family in Jiangnan? Chapter 1002. Seeing that Yu Weibing was going to confront Yang Cheng directly, Fang Zhongping quickly stepped forward to stop them. Old Yu, stop it. Why? Do you think I'm afraid of him? Yu Weibing asked with a dark face. I didn't mean that. Then stop talking nonsense with me. Fang Zhongping couldn't help but push Yu Weibing back and said nervously, Don't make things worse. This is Yang Cheng. I don't care if he's Yang Cheng or Wang Chen's. Wait, what? What did you say? Yu Weibing was still angry just a moment ago, but he couldn't wrap his head around it. You said his name is Yang Cheng. Fang Zhongping smiled gloomily. Didn't you say you wanted to see him? Now he's right in front of you. Why? Do you still want to confront him? It was obvious that Yu Weibing was still in a daze, and it was difficult for him to adapt to the situation. He had never thought that the young man with the annoying smile in front of him was the eldest grandson of the Yang family in Yanjing. Allor and Yu Ziping looked at the two of them in confusion, not knowing what was going on. A trace of doubt flashed through Yang Chen's eyes, and he asked, Secretary Fang, why are you here? Fang Zhongping hurriedly turned around, straightened his suit jacket, and said with a reserved smile, I'm here to ask for a leave for Tang Tang. This is Principal Yu Weibing, my comrade in arms when I was a soldier in the army. We're old friends, so I'm here to catch up. Yang Cheng nodded and said to Yu Weibing, You're this kid's father? Yu Weibing glared at his son angrily, but quickly calmed himself down and nodded with a kind face. It's really a misunderstanding. It turns out that we all know each other. Young Master Yang, why didn't you tell us in advance that you were coming to our school so that we could welcome you? As he spoke, Yu Weibing signaled Allor with his eyes. Allor understood and asked the surrounding students to disperse. After all, they were going to have military training, so the students didn't dare to stay any longer. Jinxiu wasn't in a hurry to leave because Yang Cheng was there. There's no need for a welcoming dinner. Your son has already done it for you, and it's very special. Yang Cheng said, but it's good that you're here. It saves me the trouble of looking for you. Yu Weibing smiled humbly and said, I'm afraid Child Yang is still angry with my son. For the sake of my only son, why don't we sit together and have a cup of tea? Let's turn this into a small matter and a small matter into nothing. After all, Child Yang isn't hurt. Dad, he said he wants to change the principal. Yu Ziping whispered at the side. Yu Weibing's expression changed. He looked at Yang Cheng's expression and frowned deeply. Child Yang, although I respect the Yang family, this isn't a joke. It's the central government's decision for me to be the principal. The principal of Zhonghai University isn't someone who can be changed at will, Yu Weibing said. Fang Zhongping also persuaded. That's right, Yang Cheng. Old Yu is a little too much, but of course he's angry because his son was beaten up. Just let him go. Yang Cheng shook his head. If it wasn't for me today, our Jinxiu might have been bullied by a bunch of hooligans in school. If it wasn't for our Jinxiu, she might have been bullied by them, and I wouldn't even know. If it wasn't for me, I would have been beaten to a pulp by your son's hooligan brothers. If an ordinary citizen's child met someone like your son, wouldn't they have to obediently hand over their daughter to be trampled on? Don't pretend that you don't know. Based on your son's behavior now, he must have done a lot of things like that in the past. It was most likely you who settled it for him, wasn't it? Yu Weibing's face alternated between red and white. He didn't know what to say. If someone else dared to say these things to him, he would have asked Allor to slap his face until it was swollen. Even if he went to court, the other party would only be asking for trouble. But the person in front of him was Yang Cheng. He even had something to ask of Yang Cheng. Moreover, the Yang family wasn't someone he could easily deal with. A person like you being the principal is equivalent to a complete negative example. If you were a gang leader, I wouldn't care about you, as long as you don't implicate me and the people around me. But you just had to come here to be the principal. That won't just affect 1 or 2 people. I don't want the university that our Jinxiu worked so hard to get into to have a rat sh*t like you as the principal. So, you have to leave this school today. Yang Cheng said lightly, but there was no room for doubt. Fang Zhongping's face almost turned green. This Yang Cheng was too rude. He even scolded a rat sh*t. Yu Weibing's face was already gloomy. Child Yang, I'm afraid you don't know the relationship between our Yu family and the Yang family. Yang Cheng was slightly puzzled. What's the relationship? Yu Weibing said confidently. My father, Yu Zhong, is your great-grandfather, a general under the direct command of old Marshal Yang Yi. Before my generation, our old Yu family worked for the Yang family. After old Marshal Yang Yi passed away, we came to the Jiangnan region to enter politics. Yang Cheng sneered. What does this have to do with me replacing you as the principal? Yu Weibing was stunned. He didn't expect Yang Cheng to not give him face. He hesitated and said, Child Yang, actually I've been looking for a chance to meet you recently. I have something. I want to talk to you in private. After we talk, maybe you won't want to replace me as the principal anymore. As he said this, Yu Weibing made an inviting gesture, asking Yang Cheng to go with him to an empty field not far away for a chat. Yang Cheng had a strange premonition in his heart. He asked Jinxiu to wait at the side and walked over with Yu Weibing. Although Fang Zhongping and the others were curious, they didn't dare to get close to listen. After walking to the empty field and confirming that there was no one around, Yu Weibing smiled mysteriously. Child Yang, do you know why our Yu family was doing well in Yinjing? We were originally the direct descendants of the Yang family, but we suddenly moved to the Jiangnan region, gave up our position in the military, and started to enter politics. Now I'm reduced to being a principal. Yang Cheng raised his eyebrows. Your position as a principal isn't low, right? The principal of Zhonghai University is at least a department-level official. What's this? It's just a civilian position. Back then, my father was the deputy commander-in-chief of the Yinjing military region, with the rank of major general. Yu Weibing said proudly. Yang Cheng was a little surprised. It seemed like what this person said was true, but why hadn't he heard of the Yu family when he went back to the Yang family, chatted with Yang Gongming a lot, and met many direct descendants of the Yang family? The deputy commander-in-chief of the Yinjing military region, that must be a family that the Yang family valued. Could it be that you were like your son back then, and were exiled to Jiangnan because they couldn't stand it anymore? Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Yu Weibing, on the other hand, had a serious expression on his face. Young Master Yang, when my father was still alive, I obeyed his words and never dared to reveal this secret. Although we left Yinjing, we lived a good life under the shadow of old Marshal Yuan. But now that my father has passed away, our Yu family's position in the Jiangnan region is declining day by day. I can't allow our family to continue declining like this, so I need your support. Yang Cheng squinted his eyes. Don't tell me you still want to go back to Yinjing? It's not that I have to go back to Yinjing, but I hope that the Yang family can support the revival of our Yu family. At least, let me reach the height that my father had back then, so that my descendants won't have to worry about anything. Yu Weibing smiled confidently. Yang Cheng sized him up. The height that your father had? You still want to be a major general? The right to command troops? Can I? Are you kidding me? Yang Cheng stopped smiling. Although I'm not interested in taking over the Yang family's affairs, and I'm even less interested in managing the troops, but based on your and your son's conduct, wouldn't the people suffer if the troops were handed over to you? Yu Weibing shook his finger. Child Yang, don't be too idealistic. Do you think that the generals in the military are good people? Yu Weibing, have indeed done some unpleasant things, but at least I got to where I am today with my own strength. Moreover, as far as I know, the commander of the Jiangnan military region, Yang Pejuan, is no longer around. If the Yang family wants to control the Jiangnan military region, they have to place more trusted family members. Our Yu family has served the Yang family for generations, and our loyalty is evident. Yang Chen's gaze gradually turned cold. I don't want to listen to you anymore. If this is all you want to say, I think you should just pack up and leave. Let someone else take over the position of the headmaster. Yu Weibing wasn't angry at all. He smiled strangely. Child Yang, before my father died, he told me the main reason why the Yu family left Yanjing. Why don't you listen and think about it? With that, Yu Weibing leaned over and whispered something into Yang Cheng's ear. Chapter 1003. The two of them were whispering to each other on the spacious lawn. It was inevitable that the people watching from afar were confused. As the person involved, Yang Cheng didn't care at all at first, but after listening to the latter part, a strange look flashed across his eyes. When Yu Weibing finished speaking, Yang Cheng seemed to be in a daze. Yang Cheng didn't expect Yu Weibing to tell him such a piece of information. It was like a heavy bomb directly exploding in his heart. Yang Cheng was confident that he had the ability to distinguish whether something like this was true or false, and Yu Weibing could actually tell him such a reason, at this time, so smoothly and complacently. Without a doubt, Yang Cheng felt that it was most likely the case. This thing you're talking about, does the old man know about it? Yang Cheng asked in a deep voice. Old man, Yu Weibing thought for a while. It's old Marshal Yang, right? I think he won't know about it. Otherwise, no one would be able to stand it. Yang Cheng was silent again. No one knew what he was thinking. Child Yang, you can think about it carefully. Giving our Yu family a chance is just a small effort. It won't be a loss to you and the Yang family. My father and I left Beijing for the Yang family and kept it a secret for decades. Shouldn't we get some reward? Are you trying to threaten me? Yang Cheng came back to his senses and asked with squinted eyes. How is it a threat? Yu Weibing smiled gently. We're just discussing a choice that's good for both of us. Do you really think that such a small matter can make the Yang family collapse? Of course not, but if such a stain is revealed, the Yang family naturally doesn't deserve to have such great power in the military, and it's time for the four major families to give up their positions. Yu Weibing smiled with squinted eyes. Yang Cheng collected his thoughts. After going through all the details in his mind, he said expressionlessly, Aren't you afraid of losing your life by saying it so easily? Yu Weibing laughed. Child Yang, are you trying to silence me? It's useless. Since I dare to say this, I naturally came prepared. What era was it now? No matter what kind of information, as long as there was proof, it would be spread to millions of people in just a few minutes. I've already ordered my confidants to spread the information I gave them if I were to die unexpectedly. Even if the Yang family has eyes and ears everywhere, they can only limit the online media in Huaxia. But my preparations are for the whole world. Child Yang, if the Yang family disgraces the whole of Huaxia, then do you think the people will still allow the country's military to have generals from the Yang family faction? Yang Cheng revealed a sneering smile. This strange smile made Yu Weibing's hair stand on end, but he still pretended to be calm. Do you really think that I care about what you said? What do you mean? Yu Weibing was a little confused. Yang Cheng said indifferently, What does it have to do with me whether the Yang family has military power or not? What does it have to do with me whether the Yang family disgraces themselves? Yu Weibing's heart skipped a beat. He tried his best to smile and said, Child Yang, you don't have to bluff. I think you should be very clear about how big a loss this will be for the Yang family. As the person who is going to inherit the Yang family, you shouldn't do something that is detrimental to yourself. Whether I'm bluffing or not, you'll know tomorrow. I'll give you one day to pack up and leave. If you're still the principal of this university tomorrow, and your hooligan son is still here harassing our Jinxiu, then I guarantee that you and your son won't even know how you died." After Yang Cheng finished speaking indifferently, he turned around and walked away without looking back. Yu Weibing watched as Yang Cheng left leisurely. He clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. It was obvious that he was furious to the extreme. What he didn't see was that the moment Yang Cheng turned around, a trace of worry flashed across his eyes. In fact, although Yang Cheng said that he didn't care, he was still a little worried. After all, that shocking old secret would not only affect him, but the people around him were the most concerned. If not for that, Yang Cheng planned to kill this guy when there was no one around just because he dared to threaten him. But now, Yang Cheng had to make a choice carefully. Jinxiu saw that Yang Cheng came back after the discussion as if nothing had happened, but she still asked worriedly, "Brother Yang, is something wrong?" Yang Cheng glanced at Yu Zipeng, who didn't dare to approach and didn't bother to pay attention to the playboy anymore. He smiled at Jinxiu and said, "What can happen? You'll have to change the principal tomorrow." Fang Zhongping smiled bitterly and said, "You really can do anything. Sai, I also know that you won't listen to anything I say, but now I'm embarrassed to face my old comrade." Yang Cheng said faintly, "You'd better tell him not to do anything stupid, otherwise you know the way I do things." A trace of surprise flashed between Fang Zhongping's brows. He swallowed his saliva with difficulty, but didn't dare to ask any more questions. Yang Cheng turned to Jinxiu and said leisurely, "Let's go. Take me around your school. I want to see the place where you teach and the cafeteria." "Why do you still want to see the cafeteria?" "Of course. Otherwise, how would I know if you're eating well at school?" Jinxiu pouted. "You're treating me like a child again. Cut the crap, let's go." Yang Cheng reached out to touch Jinxiu's head. "Don't touch my head. I'm watching." Jinxiu hurriedly dodged and looked at the freshmen walking on the drill ground. "My classmates have already started their military training. This isn't good. I'll talk to your instructor later." "I don't think you would dare to do anything," Yang Cheng said indifferently. Jinxiu rolled her eyes cutely. She knew that with Yang Cheng's protective personality, he wouldn't let her suffer a loss. She was also happy to get along with Yang Cheng, so she nodded and agreed. Although Yang Cheng had been to Zhonghai University a few times before, he had only gone to a corner of the huge campus. There weren't many areas where he actually visited where the students usually lived and studied. Walking through the campus with Jinxiu, Yang Cheng couldn't help but yearn for such an ordinary school life when he saw the students carrying their school bags and books. However, there was no hope for him in this lifetime. Occasionally, the two of them would pass by pairs of university couples. Many people would subconsciously glance at Yang Cheng and Jinxiu when they passed by. It was obvious that many people also treated the two of them as lovers. This made Jinxiu couldn't help but think of something. She lowered her head and didn't say a word. "Su Jinxiu, what are you daydreaming about?" Yang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Jinxiu bit her red lips. "Big brother Yang, do you think? Will I have a boyfriend in the future? I mean, I'm already in university, and many of my classmates are talking about getting married in the future." Yang Cheng's face stiffened, and then Shan smiled and said, "What are you saying? Of course you will have a boyfriend. Didn't you always say that you're not a little girl?" Jinxiu raised her head and looked at Yang Cheng with a pair of big, watery eyes. "If I have a boyfriend, will Big Brother Yang be happy?" Yang Cheng felt a little strange, but he still nodded. "Of course, if it's a boy who treats you well and is good to you." There were some things that, even if he always understood, he shouldn't show it. Yang Cheng knew that he was being a little cruel, but wasn't it also a kind of responsibility for the girl? "Oh." Jinxiu turned her head away in disappointment and didn't ask any more questions. Next, the two of them slowly walked back to the drill ground, as if they had lost interest in talking. When Yang Cheng sent Jinxiu back to class for military training, the students were obviously looking at him with some respect and curiosity, but Yang Cheng didn't take it to heart. After saying goodbye to Jinxiu, Yang Cheng didn't delay any longer. He thought of going home for lunch and immediately rushed to see Yao Qiqing's place. Yang Cheng already knew the specific location and contact information. After all, he had asked Molin to secretly send people to protect her. Yang Qing couldn't figure out what kind of feelings he had for Xiao Qi-Qing, but he was sure that he definitely didn't fall in love with her like he did with other women. But for this woman who had a miserable life and suffered inhumane torture since she was young, he always had some inexplicable sympathy and concern. Xiao Qi-Qing's place was a quiet mid-range apartment on the edge of Zhonghai University. This woman had made a lot of money in the United States, and she had extremely strong hacking skills. Renting a single apartment in Zhonghai was naturally not a problem. When Yang Cheng came downstairs and was about to go in, he stopped. Damn it, why is this woman here? Yang Cheng couldn't wait to get out of here. Chapter 1004. Yang Cheng's reaction was because there was a beautiful figure that Yang Cheng did not want to see again on the road in front of the apartment building. She wore a pink cartoon hoodie and a pair of tight white pants. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail with a red bow. She was dressed like a young girl, but her perky breasts were hard to hide. Her curves were so full that it made people want to look at her. Looking from the side of her face, the girl's rosy complexion was like a lotus emerging from the water. Her cheeks, which had a bit of baby fat on them, were especially lovable. Her delicate facial features were fresh and pretty, and her eyelashes were long and fluttering. At this time, because she was curious about something, she revealed a bit of bright doubt. Luo Xiaoxiao? Yang Cheng immediately remembered this girl. She was the one he met when he accompanied Mother Wang to buy shoes. She sat on his face and insisted that he be her boyfriend. She even gave him her number. However, because Yang Cheng would not pick up her calls, she gradually stopped calling. He thought that the matter was over. He did not expect to meet her here. Yes, she said that she was also a student at Zhonghai University. No wonder. Of course, Yang Cheng would not take the initiative to meet her. If he had met a young and beautiful girl with a good figure before he got married, he would not reject her. However, he already had so many outstanding women by his side. His legal wife was still giving him the cold shoulder. He did not dare to involve other women, let alone a crazy girl like her. Fortunately, Luo Xiaoxiao did not find anything after searching for a while. She touched her face in a daze and hopped away from the other side. Yang Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. He walked to the apartment where Xiao Qi-Qing lived. Although there was a password lock, Yang Cheng had already investigated it. Naturally, he would not stop her. He went upstairs and knocked on Xiao Qi-Qing's door. After a while, the woman slowly opened the door. Compared to the previous times they met, Xiao Qi-Qing was dressed much more simply at home. She only wore a white long-sleeve knitted sweater paired with a short, tight-fitting denim skirt. It was refreshing and eye-catching. When she saw Yang Cheng, Xiao Qi-Qing's first reaction was to poke her head out and carefully look downstairs. A trace of doubt flashed across Yang Cheng's mind. After some consideration, he asked, "You're looking for a girl?" Xiao Qi-Qing seemed to be startled and quickly retreated into the room. "You? How did you know? Is she still downstairs?" Yang Cheng shook his head. He took a look around and left. "It's all right." Xiao Qi-Qing touched her breasts and felt relieved. "Who is she? Do you know her? Why do you look so scared?" Xiao Qi-Qing pursed his thin lips and forced himself to say, "Let's not talk about this first. Don't you want to show me something? Come in and talk." Yang Cheng did not ask any more questions. He nodded and walked into the living room. Because it was a one-person apartment, the place was not big. It was dozens of square meters, and the decoration was quite simple. After Yang Cheng found a sofa and sat down, Xiao Qi-Qing quietly poured a glass of water for him and sat opposite him. "What do you want me to show you? Take it out," Xiao Qi-Qing said with a faint smile. Looking at the woman's slightly pale face, Yang Cheng could not bear to look at her, but he did not know where to start. He could only take out the mustard sumaru ring, 2 magic weapons, a bottle of elixirs, and some miscellaneous medicinal materials. Xiao Qi-Qing pulled herself together and carefully glanced at the pile of things in front of her. She could not help but open her thin red lips, looking very surprised. "These? Where did you get them?" Yang Cheng did not hide anything and told her about his encounter with Hao Changfeng and Lu Huiting last night, as well as the death of the Hongmeng envoy, Monk Tianyin. When Xiao Qi-Qing heard the whole story, she could not help but angrily say, Hongmeng is shameless. They always thought that they were independent of the secular world, and that they could look down on the secular world. In fact, they were just evil spirits that drank the blood of mortals. They were actually no different from the hidden families. They are all a bunch of scum who only know how to squeeze the resources of Earth to satisfy their own personal interests. Listening to these words, Yang Cheng could feel the strong hatred in the woman's heart. Although he felt that it was a little excessive, after all, they did not burn, kill, or plunder, so it could not be considered as oppressing the common people. However, thinking about what Xiao Qi-Ching had experienced since she was young, it was understandable that her mind was a little twisted. Now that you have escaped, you should see more beautiful things. Don't always think about hating those people, or else you will only let yourself live in pain. Yang Cheng could not help but say. However, Xiao Qi-Ching shook her head. Her pair of moist black eyes were filled with deep resentment. That's because you now have the ability to change your fate. I'm different. Ever since I was young, I never had any hope. In my world, there had never been any feelings other than hatred and pain. If I had to say that I didn't have any other thoughts, it would be revenge. I want to return all my pain to the group of devils who have hurt me since I was young. Yang Cheng could not help but be stunned on the sofa. The woman in front of him suddenly became emotional, causing him to be in a daze. Only then did Xiao Qi-Ching realize that she was too excited, and her face turned red. Shan Shan awkwardly lowered her head and began to carefully identify these magic treasures. So, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said these words to you. Yang Cheng laughed. I feel that this version of you is much more likable than when I was charming. Xiao Qi-Ching's delicate body trembled slightly. She looked at Yang Cheng affectionately, but her peach cheeks were pink, and she did not dare to look at Yang Cheng directly. After more than a minute, Xiao Qi-Ching finally recovered and said seriously, "These magic treasures are not ordinary. They should have been specially given to them when they left Hongmeng. This flying sword is mystic water, a flying sword of the water attribute. Although it is made of Arctic mystic iron, because it is purely of the water attribute, the craftsmanship is not very exquisite. It can only be considered as a mid-grade flying sword. As for this zither, it should be phoenix plume. It is said to be made from the phoenix tree where the ancient phoenix lived. It could be considered as a mid-grade magic treasure. It's a pity that Lu Huiding's cultivation level is too low, or else you would have encountered a lot of trouble. This mustard seed Sumeru ring is ordinary. The space is very small, and it is not a good magic treasure. It is a stretch to call it a low-grade magic treasure." Yang Chen wasn't interested in the mystical artifacts at all. He was using the heaven and earth restoration energy from the very beginning. To him, the mystical artifacts were nothing more than tools. He would give these magic treasures to his women to protect themselves when their cultivation levels were high enough. "What about this bottle of elixirs and herbs?" Yang Cheng asked. Xiao Qi-Ching smiled and said, "You are quite lucky. There should be no less than 30 low-grade elixirs in this bottle. Bodhi pill is a basic elixir used to strengthen one's primordial qi. It may not be of much use to you, and it won't have much effect on cultivators in the soul-forming stage. However, for cultivators who have not reached the soul-forming stage, the Bodhi pill can greatly speed up the process of the innate true qi transforming into true essence. Generally speaking, if you are not particularly talented, the Bodhi pill will increase your chances of reaching the soul-forming stage by at least 20%. "Only 20%, Yang Cheng said gloomily. "That is too low." Xiao Qi-Ching shook her head helplessly. "You are not taking the soul-forming stage seriously. It is already good enough to increase it by 20%. For Hongmeng and the hidden families in the illusion realm, elixirs are more important than magic treasures. Also, since most of the immortal herbs and spirit medicines have gone extinct in the ancient times, most of the herbs now are ordinary. To have elixirs, even low-grade elixirs, are more important than low-grade magic treasures. As for mid-grade elixirs, only the Earth Realm Elders in Hongmeng can have them. High-grade elixirs are enough to make them fight for it." Yang Qing thought about it and agreed. If eating a few elixirs could allow one to reach the soul-forming stage, then Hongmeng would have more than 1,000 people. However, it was better than nothing. A 20% chance was still a chance. Plus, it could speed up cultivation. These Bodhi pills should all be given to his women. Kai Ning should need it the most, so he should give her more. As for the other women, they should reach the innate stage first. Yang Chung calculated, including the evil-suppressing golden hammer and the blood-dragon golden dagger. He now had 5 magic treasures in his hands. However, the highest grade was the blood dragon golden dagger, which was only a little above average. It was really shabby. He didn't know when Hongmeng or the hidden families would give him a big fish and a high-grade magic treasure. Even if he didn't use it, it would be good to give it to his women. Chapter 1005. As for the Fengxiang bracelet that was already on Lin Ruoshi's wrist, Yang Chung didn't plan to include it. That thing's level was definitely not low, but as a gift from a mother-in-law to a daughter-in-law, Yang Chung preferred to think of it as a family heirloom. The rest of the herbs, in the eyes of Xiao Qi-Ching, were some of the most basic herbs for alchemy in the illusion realm. They weren't very useful, so she could throw them away or eat them as tonics. After looking at everything, Yang Chung looked at the time. It was almost lunchtime, so he stood up and was about to leave. Xiao Qi-Ching didn't dare to stay any longer. Now she wanted to rely on Yang Chung to protect herself, so she didn't dare to have any other thoughts. She just wanted to do her part obediently. But right at this moment, a pungent, burnt smell came from the kitchen. "Ah!" Xiao Qi-Ching exclaimed and quickly ran to the kitchen in her slippers. Yang Chun followed her in bewilderment, only to see the woman carefully turn off the gas stove. She then looked at the burnt pot with a pitiful expression, as if she wanted to cry, but had no tears. "Are you roasting meat?" Xiao Qi-Ching nodded eagerly. "I put it on before you came, but I forgot about it after chatting with you." Yang Chung didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How can you be so careless? As a woman, you're still so careless. It seems that you were quite scheming when you lied to me in the U.S. Xiao Qi-Ching lowered her head shyly. "I have never cooked before, so it's inevitable that I make mistakes. If you don't know how to cook, then go buy it. Were you always like this in the U.S.? Before I returned, I gave a lot of money to my subordinates in the U.S. Now I don't work, so I have to save some money." Yang Chung was speechless. He didn't expect that Xiao Qi-Ching had a conscience. After leaving the U.S., she still subsidized her subordinates. She had grown up in a hidden family and had only been out for 2 years. It was only after she returned to Zhonghai that she started living alone. It was no wonder that this woman was careless. Yang Chung smelled the burning smell in the house and looked at the dejected woman standing in the kitchen. He couldn't help but feel pity for her. "All right, wash the pot. I'll treat you to a meal. It's all a reward for helping me appraise," Yang Chung said. Xiao Qi-Ching raised her head and looked at Yang Chung in disbelief. Are you serious?" Yang Chung couldn't help laughing and said, "Although I'm afraid of my wife, I'm not afraid to treat you to a meal. It's not like I'm treating you to a hotel." Xiao Qi-Ching's cheeks immediately turned red, and she hurriedly turned around to deal with the burnt vegetables, not daring to reply. After dealing with the dishes, Xiao Qi-Ching put on a waist-length suit jacket and went out with Yang Chung. But perhaps it was because Yang Chung made fun of her, the woman kept her head down shyly and didn't say a word. Yang Chung suddenly felt that the Xiao Qi-Ching he knew in the past wasn't the real her. Once this woman took off the facade that was useless to him, she was just a delicate woman who didn't have much experience in the world. She could even be considered as the meek type. This made Yang Chung feel especially fresh. He couldn't help but have an evil thought. If the current Xiao Qi-Ching went to bed with him, how shy would it be? But he could only think about it. Yang Chung didn't want another landmine to be on the line between him and Lin Ruoshi. When he asked Xiao Qi-Ching what she liked to eat, the woman only said whatever she liked. Yang Chung found a Sichuan restaurant near the university. Sitting face to face and eating, Xiao Qi-Ching was obviously a little uneasy. Perhaps it was because she was grateful for Lin Ruoshi's tolerance. The woman always felt a little guilty sitting with Yang Chung like this. The two didn't talk much. Halfway through the meal, Yang Cheng's phone on the table vibrated. Yang Chung took a look and saw that it was Choi Yun who hadn't contacted him for a while. This policewoman was always busy all day, and Yang Chung was most worried about whether she could complete her training on time. But Yang Chung didn't want to force his woman like an instructor, so he didn't ask much. Just when he picked up the phone and was about to speak, Choi Yun's explosive loud voice came from the phone. Yang Chung, what's the matter with that child? Yang Chung subconsciously put away the phone and said with a bitter smile, Yonyan, don't talk without a head or tail. What child? Choi Yun was obviously a little excited. It's that little girl named Lan Lan. Tell me the truth. Is she your biological daughter? You have an illegitimate daughter with another woman, right? Hearing this, Yang Chung was puzzled. Why do you think so? Lan Lan is a child that Ruashi wants to adopt. How can she be my biological daughter? Really? Choi Yun said with some disbelief. How can you allow Ruashi to adopt a child so suddenly? You are still so young. I thought you were very strict with children. If she wasn't your biological daughter, I would find it unbelievable. Lan Lan isn't an ordinary girl. You can just let Ruashi explain it to you. But why are you suddenly telling me this? Did you see Ruashi today? Choi Yun muttered. Of course I saw her. The Empress just came to my office. She took time out her busy schedule to come, holding your baby daughter. Yang Chung couldn't help but laugh. Did she ask you to do something? Choi Yun snorted and said, It's the adoption procedures, because our country's law states that the couple must be at least 30 years old to adopt a child. You're still far from that. So she asked me to help open the back door, so that the adoption can be legal and Lan Lan can have an identity. Yang Chung suddenly understood, but he couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that Lin Ruashi was determined to adopt Lan Lan as her own daughter. She hurriedly handled the adoption procedures for Lan Lan behind his back. It was probably because he said yesterday that regardless of whether Lan Lan's grandfather came back or not, he would try his best to help keep Lan Lan. But for Yang Chung, it didn't matter. Lan Lan was indeed very likable, and she was talented. She was suitable to be his daughter. On the other side, after Choi Yun confirmed the situation, she said leisurely, but really, Lan Lan is very cute, and Ruashi has good taste. But this is also very shameless. Obviously, no one can get pregnant, and I still want to compete for first place. Now Ruashi directly adopted one. This is simply cheating. Yang Chung had a headache. This policewoman's way of thinking was indeed extraordinary. If you like, you can also adopt one. I don't object. Yang Chung smiled bitterly. I don't want to. Catching criminals is what I like to do. Choi Yun said happily. I've already thought about it. Since Lan Lan isn't Ruashi's biological daughter, it's the same as calling us mom. When I'm free on the weekend, I'll buy some fun and delicious food to bribe her. Maybe Lan Lan will like me even more in the future. Yang Chung touched his face, feeling helpless towards Choi Yun's rich imagination. Just as he was about to urge the woman not to forget about cultivation, Choi Yun had an urgent mission and directly hung up the phone. Yang Chung gloomily put down his phone, only to see Xiao Qi-Ching looking at him strangely. Is there a flower on my face? Xiao Qi-Ching shook her head and pursed her lips into a smile. Can I ask you a question? Speak. How many lovers do you have? Yang Chung could clearly see the strong fire of gossip in the woman's eyes, but this wasn't a difficult question to ask. On the contrary, it was something that he should answer directly. 7. Yang Chung blurted out. Of course, he didn't count those who were just having sex. Otherwise, how could he count them all? Xiao Qi-Ching's mouth was wide open. A trace of resentment flashed through her eyes. No wonder Miss Lin hates Little Sin so much. You're too much. Yang Chung thought to himself that he had rejected quite a few of them. So he curled his lips and said, We've already quarreled a lot about this matter. Can you not mention this to me? However, Xiao Qi-Ching smiled sweetly. Actually, it's nothing much. You're a good man, so it's understandable that many women like you. Yang Chung almost spat out the rice in his mouth. He covered his mouth and said vaguely, good man? Xiao Qi-Ching nodded. You're so powerful, yet you're willing to agree to Miss Lin's adoption of a daughter as your first child. This can only prove that you love Miss Lin more than yourself. At least that's what I think. You think too highly of me. I'm not that noble. Yang Chung shook his head. In short, among all the people I've met, You and Miss Lin are the people who treat me the best, other than the nanny." Looking at the woman's sincere eyes, Yang Chung couldn't help but feel guilty, but he had to admit that Xiao Qiqing's words made her even more likable in his eyes. Chapter 1006. After lunch, the relationship between him and Xiao Qiqing seemed to have improved in some ways, but Yang Chung didn't pay much attention to it. At this time, he was more focused on how to help the women improve their cultivation. Watching Xiao Qiqing go back to school, Yang Chung drove back to the villa in the western suburbs. He hadn't paid attention to Qiang Wei's cultivation progress for almost half a month, so he sent the Bodhi pills to her. Since she resigned from the position of the president of the Red Thorn Society, Qiang Wei spent most of her time on cultivation. She wouldn't go out most of the time, but unexpectedly, when he ran to the villa where Qiang Wei and Mo Chinny lived, Yang Chung found that there was no one at home. Yang Chung was embarrassed to call Mo Lin and ask her. After all, he didn't receive any alarm, so nothing must have happened to the women. But as a man, he was too heartless. He didn't know where his women were at all. Helplessly, Yang Chung took out his phone and dialed Qiang Wei's number, but her phone was turned off. Yang Chung couldn't help but frown. After thinking for a while, he dialed Mo Chinny's number again. After a few rings, Mo Chinny picked up the phone in a hurry. "Stinky Yang Chung, you heartless man. You finally have time to talk to me?" Yang Chung touched his forehead in shame. He had been busy with the wedding with Lin Ruoshi and hadn't spent time with other women for a long time. It seemed that he had to find some time to catch up. Otherwise, he would feel too guilty. Shanshan smiled. Yang Chung said, "Little Shanshan, actually, I want to ask, where did Qiang Wei go? Why is there no one at home?" On the other end of the line, Mo Chinny's breathing was obviously rapid. "You call me just to ask this? Then I'll hang up." "Don't. Chinny, don't be angry. I just got some free time. How about having dinner with me tonight? I'll accompany you in any way you want. Don't be angry with me," Yang Chung said with a flattering smile. "How about I let you sit on top of me tonight? I'll let you have the initiative." Mo Chinny couldn't help but laugh and snort. "You didn't say anything nice and you're up to no good. I'm not going to play with you. You can go look for Rose. I'm busy." Ruoshi started to feel a lot of pressure when she came back to the company. "If it wasn't for the fact that I don't think it's good enough, I would have quit and go cultivate like Rose." Yang Chung asked curiously, "Darling, do you know where Qiang Wei is?" Mo Chinny said, "The day after you went to marry Ruoshi, Qiang Wei said that her cultivation had reached an important period and needed a quiet place to settle down. So she went to Jinshan village in the north of Zhonghai. It was a rural area with mountains everywhere, but there were also many temples. Qiang Wei said that she found a misty rain nunnery where she could stay and planned to meditate there for a period of time. She told us not to worry." Yang Chung searched the map in his mind. There was indeed a place called Jinshan village. However, that place was more like a mountain village than a village. Its population was only around 10,000. It was mainly located between Zhonghai and Su province. Neither side was willing to take care of and develop it. It was poor enough, but its name was a little rich. He didn't expect Qiang Wei to have such awareness. She even went to a remote mountain area to cultivate. Although the effect wasn't necessarily great, it was definitely easier to get rid of distracting thoughts than in the city. It was a good method. Yang Chung was looking forward to what kind of bottleneck Qiang Wei had encountered. Previously, after the thunderstorm, Qiang Wei had indeed said that she had comprehended something in terms of concept. Could it be that she had really made a big breakthrough? "Little Shanshan, I'll go look for Qiang Wei and see how she's doing. I'll come back to look for you at night. Don't work overtime," Yang Chung said with a smile. "It's a deal." Mo Chinny was also very neat. She kissed him on the phone and hung up. Yang Chung called home and told Mother Wang that he wouldn't be home for dinner. Then, he got up and rushed to Jinshan village. Since he had confirmed that he wouldn't trigger a heavenly tribulation, Yang Chung was no longer obsessed with driving. He used some of his cultivation and moved a few long distances. After a few minutes, he arrived at the mountain intersection near Jinshan village. He walked to the small market in Jinshan village and saw local farmers selling their goods everywhere. There were all kinds of mountain specialties and some domesticated birds, making this area look independent and completely aloof from the world. Yang Chung originally only wanted to ask where the Misty Rain Nunnery was. He didn't expect that the vendors would speak in a dialect. Not only could they not tell him where it was, but they also began to promote their products. Yang Chung tossed and turned for a long time before he finally learned the location of the Misty Rain Nunnery from a public official of the township government. Misty Rain Nunnery doesn't allow men to enter, and Abbess Misty Rain doesn't treat men. What are you doing there? After telling him the location, the government official couldn't help but ask curiously. Yang Chung was stunned. Men are not allowed to enter? Is the Misty Rain Nunnery not open to the public? Of course not. The man said, Misty Rain Nunnery was built by Abbess Misty Rain many years ago with her own money. She's the old immortal here. Many women are cured by her when they are sick. Chinese medicine is very powerful, but she hates men very much, so she doesn't let men enter the Misty Rain Nunnery and doesn't treat men. A trace of confusion flashed in Yang Cheng's eyes. He always felt that there was something fishy about this, but he didn't answer much. After bidding farewell to the public official, he found a place where there was no one and quietly moved towards the location of the Misty Rain Nunnery. After just 2 flashes, Yang Chung had already appeared outside a nunnery with green tiles and white walls. On the lintel of the door, the words Misty Rain Nunnery were written beautifully in ink. It should be real. This building that looked like an old house was located at the northeast of the top of a mountain. It was surrounded by green pines and cypresses. The slanting sunlight passed through the woods and shone on the walls, making it look mottled and blurred. The light autumn wind blew, and it was a good place for leisure and elegance. Just as Yang Chung was secretly praising Chiang Wei for choosing a good place and was about to step into the nunnery, a strange but cold divine sense suddenly swept over him. At first, Yang Chung didn't pay much attention to it. When he was swept by it, he suddenly realized that there was an expert in this Misty Rain Nunnery. This cold divine sense made Yang Chung feel that it was much more powerful than any of the people in Hongmeng that he had met before. Perhaps only the unknown guy he had met in the Tang sect was more powerful than this divine sense. Humph! A cold snort came into his ears. Before Yang Chung stepped into the door, a blue-gray figure had already blocked the door. She was dressed in a blue-gray robe and a nun's hat. She looked to be in her 30s and didn't have any makeup on her face. However, she still exuded an innate and beautiful appearance. Although her slender figure wasn't voluptuous, it was still unique under the long robe. She held a horsetail whisk with white tassels in her hand. The exquisite patterns on it were obvious that it was not an ordinary object, and it faintly emitted the spiritual qi of yin and yang. Theoretically, the horsetail whisk was a Taoist magic weapon, but it was obviously a magic weapon, so it didn't matter who was holding it. Who dares to break in my Misty Rain Nunnery? The cold nun questioned. Yang Chung narrowed his eyes and took a closer look. He found that this nun's cultivation was actually at the crossing calamity stage. However, Yang Chung roughly estimated that her cultivation was at the early stage of the 3 Yang real fire tribulation, or at most the middle stage. There was still a big gap between them. Yang Chung didn't come to fight. This nun might be a rogue cultivator and not from Hongmeng, so he didn't need to kill her on sight. Therefore, he smiled quite politely. This nun must be Abbess Misty Rain. I mean no harm. I just came to look for my woman. I heard that she is meditating here. Misty Rain's eyes flashed with a hint of thought. She found that she couldn't see through Yang Cheng's cultivation. It was not impossible that he was much stronger than her, or that Yang Cheng's cultivation technique belonged to the type that hid his cultivation. Looking at Yang Cheng's age, Misty Rain felt that even if her cultivation was lower than Yang Cheng's, the difference wouldn't be too big, so she wasn't afraid. Those who meditate here are all women. You are a man, so you can't go in. If you want to look for your woman, wait for her to go out by herself, Misty Rain said. Yang Chung couldn't help but feel annoyed at this unreasonable nun who looked at him with incomparable contempt. Abbess, I'm not going in to peep at a woman bathing. Why is your place like a prison? Even a prison allows family members to visit. When Misty Rain heard this, she immediately raised her eyebrows and fiercely swung the horsetail whisk in her hand, which actually caused a ripple of spiritual power. How dare you say that my misty rain nunnery is a prison? Do you think that if I can't see through your cultivation, you can bully I? Chapter 1007. Yang Cheng was stunned. This old nun was really hot-tempered. She didn't look like a pure monk at all. Nun, don't get me wrong. I'm really here to find my woman. Her name is Qiang Wei. I'm not here to cheat a woman. Yang Cheng said. A strange look flashed in Misty Rain's eyes, but she said, Humph. In this Misty Rain nunnery, everyone is my disciple, a monk who concentrates on cultivation. Your woman is not here. Yang Cheng was annoyed. This old nun was really stubborn. Did she really think he was a pushover? I won't believe your one-sided words. If you don't let her go, I'll go in and find her myself. Yang Cheng was about to go around the door. Misty Rain blocked his way with a white horsetail whisk in her hand. Misty Rain nunnery doesn't allow any man to enter. If you want to go in, don't blame I for being rude. Looking at this posture, they were going to fight. Yang Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This nun was abandoned by a man when she was young. It seemed that she really hated men to the point of psychological distortion. But he didn't have time to waste with her. He still had to go back to Zhonghai and have dinner with Mo Qianni. Completely ignoring Misty Rain's obstruction, Yang Cheng flashed past Misty Rain and came to the front yard of Misty Rain nunnery. Misty Rain shouted, You're courting death. Eat my Tai horsetail whisk. After saying that, Misty Rain turned around. The horsetail whisk in her hand suddenly grew several feet long. Like a white waterfall, she swung it fiercely towards Yang Cheng's neck. Even Clay Bodhisattva had 3 points of anger. Not to mention that Yang Cheng was not a kind person. Being provoked like this, he already had the intention to kill. Regardless of what grade the Tai horsetail whisk was or what material it was made of, Yang Cheng raised one hand and was about to grab the horsetail whisk. However, when Yang Cheng grabbed the horsetail whisk with one hand, he discovered that the seemingly soft, long hair was like a living thing. It began to grow again and gradually wrapped around his arm. You overestimate yourself. Misty Rain sneered a few times. She passed more true core energy, and a cold aura enveloped the whole courtyard. Yang Cheng activated the Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture to protect his body with the heaven and earth restoration energy. However, it was difficult for him to break the long hair on his body. These white hairs seemed to have been specially processed. The more they were attacked, the tighter they would shrink. Furthermore, they were extremely flexible and could grow even faster after absorbing spiritual energy. The long hair that had spread from his arms had already begun to wrap around his body and legs, and was even spreading toward his neck and head. Struggle. No matter how hard you struggle, these hairs will only become tighter and tougher. All men in this world are not good people. Today I will start a killing spree and get rid of you. As Misty Rain spoke, the Tai horsetail whisk emitted a cold wave of spiritual energy. This seemed to have something to do with her cultivation technique. Not only did she want to completely wrap around Yang Cheng and mince him, but she also wanted to freeze Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng had been careless and felt uncomfortable being tied up. When he heard this, he was even more furious. Not only did she not want to let go of her own woman, but she also wanted to kill him. Although he was also the type of person who killed without blinking an eye, it was a different story if someone else wanted to kill him. Seeing that the cold, true core energy was about to invade all the meridians in his body, Yang Cheng quickly activated the heaven and earth restoration energy and ignited the Nanming leaf fire around his body. A golden red flame flashed out of thin air. The blazing flame enveloped Yang Cheng, and the long hair of the Tai horsetail whisk seemed to be afraid of this hot heavenly fire. After burning a large part of it, it quickly withdrew. Nanming leaf fire? Misty Rain exclaimed. After withdrawing the Tai horsetail whisk, she hurriedly retreated a few steps. She was in the early stage of the 3-yang real fire tribulation. When she entered this tribulation stage, she had suffered 3 rounds of Nanming leaf fire tribulation. So, she was very familiar with this heavenly fire. In order to pass that heavenly tribulation, she had lost a total of 3 magic treasures, swallowed a lot of life-saving elixirs, and was seriously injured before she succeeded. Although the Nanmingli fire in front of him was not the heavenly fire of the heavenly tribulation back then, it was still the genuine Nanmingli fire after all. It was not as powerful, vigorous, and blazing as the heavenly fire of the heavenly tribulation. Bah, bah, bah. Yang Chung spat out the burnt long hair in his mouth and cursed. Damn nun, I have no grudge against you, and you want to kill me? Do you think you're me? Misty Rain had no time to pay attention to Yang Cheng's strange logic. Looking at the Nanming leaf fire lingering around Yang Chung, she was in a daze. She had heard that some cultivators with great superpowers could control some low-level heavenly fire in cold water, such as Nanmingli fire and Kuei water, but they were all supermasters at least in the late stage of crossing tribulation. They had to cultivate some mysterious cultivation techniques, or use some special top-grade, or even immortal-grade magic treasures. Is this young man in front of me at the late stage of crossing tribulation? Otherwise, how could he summon such an obedient Nanmingli fire to protect him? Ignoring her daze, Yang Chung controlled the Nanmingli fire with one hand and condensed it into a long flame dragon, which whistled and bit Misty Rain. When Misty Rain woke up with a start, she waved her Tai Horsetail whisk and created a Tai Chi 8 trigrams pattern. It should be the defensive array formation on the horsetail whisk. When it collided with the flame dragon, it was easily broken, but it also bought her some time. After blocking the flame dragon, she dodged and jumped onto the wall. Who the hell are you? Misty Rain finally realized that she might not be able to kill this young man. However, Yangcheng was not in the mood to continue talking. With a dark face, he waved his hand. From behind Misty Rain, another Nanming leaf fire dragon whistled and condensed, suddenly opening its mouth to bite her. Misty Rain jumped up hurriedly and landed awkwardly in a corner on the ground, looking at the two fire dragons hovering in the sky in a panic. For Yang Chung, he could skillfully control the most basic Nanmingli fire. Although he was still far from that mysterious old man, it was more than enough to deal with this cultivator who had just passed the tribulation of 3 Yang real fire. What? Are you afraid? It's too late. As Yang Chung spoke, his whole body was wrapped in the Nanmingli fire. Like a burning fireball, his body rushed straight to Misty Rain. Misty Rain never expected that Yang Cheng's ability to control the leaf fire was so high, and he could change his attack mode so quickly. She didn't dare to touch the heavenly fire, so she had to dodge several times in a row. But how could Yang Cheng's speed be inferior to hers? Like a cat catching a mouse, he always approached her little by little. The sparks touched Misty Rain's robe, burning many small black holes. What made Misty Rain even more distressed was that Yang Chung was deliberately destroying things. While chasing after her to kill her, the two fire dragons kept shuttling back and forth between the houses of Misty Rain's nunnery. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The sounds of walls collapsing and houses collapsing caused Misty Rain to tremble in anger. If you want to fight, come at me. Why did you destroy my Misty Rain nunnery? The nun shouted. Yang Chung easily suppressed her with his fists and feet covered in flames, and said with a smile, "Since you don't want me to find you, I'll raise your house to the ground, and then I'll find my woman." Shameless. Hee hee, it's a good match for your unreasonable. In the sky above Misty Rain nunnery, Yang Chung was like a god of war in the fire, fighting with Misty Rain with the Tai Horsetail whisk in her hand. The crimson light streaked across the sky. The Tai Horsetail whisk kept circling and blocking the light. Some of the light was refracted and dispersed, as if it was going to burn the low clouds on the mountaintop and turn them into red clouds. Under the bright light, the two fire dragons flying and lingering in Misty Rain nunnery on the mountaintop echoed with each other, as if the whole mountaintop had been dyed into a sea of fire. Yang Chung became more and more proficient in using Nanmingli fire, and he understood how to use the power of heaven and earth. Even a little bit of it was enough to benefit him a lot. After all, there was a gap in strength. If Yang Chung didn't have a strong desire to kill, and Misty Rain had the Tai Horsetail whisk with her, she would have been chopped into the air. Yang Cheng restrained Misty Rain and made her suffer, and at the same time, he used his divine sense to search the houses on the mountaintop, looking for the female disciples who ran out because of the fire dragons. More than a dozen women dressed in plain clothes, or wearing nuns' hats, or with long hair hanging loosely over their shoulders were panicking and screaming, trying to get out of the Yin nunnery. Among the crowd, a woman walked out of a wing room, but stood still, silently raised her head, and looked at the sky. Xiangwei. Yang Cheng was delighted. The black hair below was dyed red, and the charming face with a bit of cold arrogance. The tall and plump woman was Situ Qiangwei, whom he was looking for. Misty Rain, who was chased by Yang Cheng, saw Qiangwei come out, and anxiety and panic flashed in her eyes. But she helplessly found that she couldn't stop Yang Cheng at all. Even she was not burned by Nanmingli fire because Yang Cheng didn't try his best to kill her. With Yang Cheng's elusive fire method, he could even appear in front of her out of thin air. How could she avoid it? Yang Cheng didn't pay attention to Misty Rain. His figure immediately disappeared in the air, and when he reappeared, he was already in front of Qiangwei. As he found the woman, the two frightening fire dragons immediately dissipated, which made the nuns feel relieved. Just when Yang Cheng was about to go forward and hug the woman he hadn't seen for a while, he found that Qiangwei was looking at him coldly. Chapter 1008. This kind of coldness wasn't because she didn't know him, but it wasn't like in the past, where the two of them had a tacit understanding and a tender gaze filled with affection. It was as if, to her, he was just a casual acquaintance. Yang Cheng's heart tightened. This was clearly an unusual performance. How could he suddenly feel such a big change in just a few days? Taking a closer look, Rose's eyes were filled with a sense of emptiness that was different from how it usually was. It was as if the woman's mind had suddenly gone blank. Qiangwei, darling, what's wrong? Yang Cheng stepped forward and grabbed the woman's arms, muttering. Qiangwei seemed a little indifferent as she lightly said, "You're here." This seemed to be a question, but it also seemed to be a straightforward statement. Yang Cheng couldn't help but feel nervous and anxious. This was even more terrifying than being injured. "Why are you looking at me like that? Don't you remember me?" Qiangwei shook her head. "I know you, you are Yang Cheng." There was no emotion in his tone. Yang Cheng's heart turned cold. He immediately turned his head and stared at Misty Rain, who had already landed not far away. "Damn it, what did you do to my woman?" Misty Rain was on guard as she replied, "What does this have to do with me? This girl's talent is peerless, and she is a rare seedling that only appears once in 100 years. Her perception is excellent, and she came to my Misty Rain nunnery to cultivate. Out of kindness and love for talent, I accepted her as a direct disciple. You keep saying that you are her man, so why did you let her come to my place to cultivate for a few days? Now that she has abandoned her love and focused on cultivation, taking me as her master will only be beneficial to her cultivation." Yang Cheng was shocked. Abandoning love? That's impossible. How can the feelings between a man and a woman be abandoned just like that? Misty Rain coldly snorted and said, "What's impossible about that? You men are all bad things. You said that she's your woman because she is still young and has the looks of a flower in the moon. If she was old, with white hair and full of wrinkles, would you still like her so much?" The so-called love between a man and a woman was just a fleeting cloud. Only the cultivation path was the right path that she should pursue. If you really care about her, you shouldn't have come here to cause trouble. Her Yuaning body was likely destroyed by you previously. If she was still a virgin, her cultivation speed would be at least 30% faster. You've already harmed her. Do you still want to delay her cultivation path? F***CK off. Yang Cheng was infuriated and said with a murderous look, "Not only did you turn my woman into such a numb doll, you even dare to fart here? With your cultivation, do you think I need you to teach my woman? No man wants you, you stinking B***TCH, and you don't dare to admit it after being dumped. You're just lying to yourself, saying that you've seen through love in the world. I hate people like you who don't have the guts to face it, but still think you're standing on a moral high ground. You what did you say?" Misty Rain was so angry that her face turned red, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. Yang Cheng was not afraid at all. At this moment, he just looked at the lifeless Qiang Wei with infinite guilt and said in a sad voice, "Baby Qiang Wei, when I kill this nun, I'll definitely cure you." With that, Yang Cheng used the power of heaven and earth to gently lift Qiang Wei to an open space in the distance. During this process, Qiang Wei seemed to be at a loss and didn't answer anything. Yang Cheng felt more and more distressed, but he gritted his teeth and turned around with a gloomy face. When he faced Misty Rain again, he didn't have the slightest intention to restrain himself. Yin also felt a huge pressure filling the entire mountain. It was so heavy that she almost couldn't breathe, but she still stubbornly held on. The difference between the early stage of the 9 heavenly thunder tribulation and the early stage of the 3 yang fire tribulation was obvious. Yang Chen took a step forward without changing his expression. The heaven and earth restoration energy on the peak of the mountain started to ripple violently, causing a huge wave to rise from within. In the waves, the Nanmingli fire appeared again, but this time it formed a sea of fire that was hundreds of feet wide. Countless fire snakes surrounded Misty Rain, and she had no way out. Yang Cheng's divine sense was locked onto Misty Rain. Even if Misty Rain wanted to dodge, Yang Cheng was faster than her, and there was no chance for her to escape. Misty Rain looked around in fear. She didn't expect that Yang Cheng had held back so much of his strength, and the pressure that came crashing down on her instantly made it impossible for her to resist. The anger he felt just now had turned into a deep sense of fear. "If you let my woman return to her original state, I'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, I'll turn you into ashes in the next second," Yang Cheng said coldly. Misty Rain's gums trembled, and she gritted her teeth. "Come at me if you have the guts. I will never bow to a demon like you." "Demon?" "Oomph," Yang Cheng sneered. "You really know how to give me a title." Then, Yang Cheng didn't want to waste any more time. The reason why Qiang Wei had become like this was most likely because of some kind of cultivation method or medicine. He didn't believe that his endless resolve restoration scripture couldn't cure her. This old nun was really despicable. She wanted to take Qiang Wei as her disciple, but she used such a cruel method. It would be better if she burned her soul to ashes. Following Yang Cheng's thought, the Nanmingli fire that covered the entire mountaintop suddenly began to spin rapidly. As it circled, the fire snakes swallowed and spat out, forming a huge flame vortex. Although the blazing high temperature didn't touch anything on the mountaintop, it directly turned the plants on the mountaintop into ashes. The rocks also began to crack. Under Misty Rain's horrified gaze, this huge vortex filled with powerful and strange true essence swallowed her in the blink of an eye. It was as if a devil's huge mouth had opened in the sky, wanting to tear her apart and devour her completely. In Yang Cheng's eyes, this old nun was no different from a dead person. But at this moment, a ray of light suddenly flashed in Misty Rain's hand. After the earthen yellow light flickered, the nun's figure disappeared in an instant. Yang Cheng was stunned. He didn't expect that Misty Rain actually had a way to escape. She was obviously pretending to be unable to resist. After subconsciously swearing in English, Yang Cheng could only guess that the old nun had some magic weapon to escape. Yang Cheng's divine sense spread out for dozens of miles, but he couldn't find her trace, so he had to give up. In fact, Yang Cheng's guess was not wrong. Misty Rain did use the only Earth Escape talisman, but this kind of talisman was passed down by the ancient great practitioners. It was an extremely precious one-time tool. If she didn't have such a talisman because of her special background, it would be difficult for her to escape today. Yang Cheng withdrew the endless sea of fire on the mountain. Almost 70% of this Misty Rain's nunnery was destroyed. Most of the female disciples of Misty Rain had escaped down the mountain, so no one was hurt. Quickly flashing in front of Qiang Wei, Yang Cheng grabbed one of Qiang Wei's hands. Looking at the woman with a blank expression, Yang Cheng felt a strong sense of self-blame. "Darling Qiang Wei, Let me show you what kind of vicious trick that damn nun used on you." As Yang Chung spoke, he began to use his divine sense to carefully examine the condition of Qiangwei's body. As for Qiangwei herself, she looked at Yang Chung in confusion. "Yang Chung, I'm fine. Where's my master?" "She's not your master," Yang Chung said in a hoarse voice. Qiangwei tilted her head, looking very puzzled. Yang Chung attentively examined each and every one of Qiangwei's meridians. He hadn't paid much attention to it before, but now that he had clearly examined it, Yang Chung couldn't help but be slightly surprised. "This, darling Qiangwei, how did your inner force cultivation suddenly increase so much?" No wonder Yang Chung was surprised. It had only been a few days since they last met, but the true energy in Qiangwei's dantian had actually accumulated to the point where she was about to break through to the xiantian realm. Such a deep Shinqi. It was as if a woman had been practicing inner force for more than 20 years. Inner force. Qiangwei was a little confused. "I don't know, I practice every day." Yang Chung sucked in a breath of cold air. Yang Chung was very clear that even if Qiangwei cultivated a cultivation method that she had figured out herself, it would still be impossible for her inner force cultivation to improve so quickly in such a short period of time, not to mention without the help of pills. The only possibility was that her realm had increased. Previously, during the thunderstorm in the morning, Qiangwei had said that she seemed to have comprehended something, but she hadn't been able to grasp it at once. It was hard to guarantee that the little germination at that time had borne fruit during this period of time. Chapter 1009. On the path of cultivation, epiphany was always more effective than diligence. Therefore, this also violated the law of heaven rewards the diligent, which was why it was a heaven-defying move. Obviously, Qiangwei had comprehended her own Tao, which was why her true Qi, which was a quantitative change during cultivation, made rapid progress. Yang Chung believed that as long as he gave Rose 2 Bodhi pills to absorb more spiritual energy, it wouldn't be impossible for her to enter the Xiantian stage within a day. Judging from the speed of Qiangwei's progress, some of the things that this woman had comprehended were not ordinary. But the most urgent thing now was to let Qiangwei return to her previous appearance, instead of becoming like a beautiful Barbie doll, as if she had lost her soul. Yang Chung grabbed the woman's hand, searched her whole body, and carefully sensed Qiangwei's brain. After this investigation, he finally found something fishy. Near Qiangwei's Baihui acupoint, there was a small ball of unusual true core force, which, together with an unknown medicine, was entrenched there and affected the nerves in Qiangwei's brain. This was obviously a crooked method that specialized in controlling people's thoughts, and it must have something to do with Misty Rain. She said that she wanted to accept Qiangwei as her disciple, probably because of Qiangwei's speed of progress, or even because she wanted to take the cultivation method that he taught to Qiangwei. He only regretted that he came back too late and didn't know whether the nun had succeeded or not. If he had a chance to see her next time, he would torture her to death. In fact, Yang Chung didn't know that Misty Rain did have such an idea. Since the day Qiangwei came to the nunnery of Misty Rain, she had marveled at what kind of cultivation method Qiangwei had cultivated. Unfortunately, she was interrupted by Yang Chung before she could completely control Qiangwei's thoughts. But now that he had found the problem, it was not difficult for Yang Chung to remove it. After all, Misty Rain's cultivation was much lower than his, and the endless resolve restoration scripture was best at detoxification and treatment, so he just needed to spend some time to deal with it carefully. Baby Qiangwei, bear with it and sleep first. Because Qiangwei was not very sober now, she might not listen to him no matter what he said. Therefore, in order to prevent Qiangwei from using her true qi, Yang Chung had to stimulate Qiangwei's shoulder and neck to make her fall asleep first. Then, he held her in his arms and relieved her of the true essence and medicine that were entrenched around her Baihui acupoint. It was unknown what kind of cultivation technique Yin Yu cultivated, but it seemed to be quite extraordinary. The true essence that was left in Chong Wei's acupuncture point was bone-chilling and thick. It was obvious that it was left behind by an extremely profound cultivation technique. It was a pity that her comprehension was slightly lacking. Otherwise, she wouldn't have only been able to cross the 3 yang real fire tribulation. After spending more than half an hour and concentrating all his attention, Yang Cheng finally expelled the poison and ice-cold true essence from Xiangwei's body. Almost at the same time, the woman's long eyelashes fluttered and her drowsy eyes opened. She looked at Yang Cheng with a naive expression. When Yang Cheng saw that Xiangwei had finally returned to her normal demeanor, he heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "Silly girl, what are you looking at? Don't you recognize me?" Xiangwei's beautiful eyes were filled with thoughts, as if she was trying to recall what had happened. "I think I had a dream," the woman murmured. "Is that so? It seems like you still remember something. What did you dream of? You're clearly standing in front of me. I want to call out to you, I want to hug you, but it's as if I've lost my body. I can only think about it. I can't do anything." Yang Cheng picked her up, held her in his arms, and kissed her cheek. "Who told you to run into such a deep mountain forest? If I had come a little later, who knows what would have happened?" Yang Cheng blamed her. Xiangwei smiled sweetly. "I didn't think too much about it. I checked on the internet and said that this place is relatively quiet and has fewer people, so I came and asked around at the foot of the mountain. The locals all said that the nun in this place has a lot of prestige, so I came to stay here for a while. Who knew that she would do something to me? You're not allowed to be so rash in the future. You're no longer an ordinary person. Those with cultivation bases will most likely target you when they see you, so you have to be extra careful." "Got it, but seeing you worry for me, I'm still very happy." Yang Cheng scratched the woman's nose. "I'm not just worried. When I saw that you didn't seem to recognize me, I almost went crazy." "Really?" "Nonsense. If I suddenly lose my memory one day and don't remember you, would you be able to accept it so easily?" Yang Cheng's face was filled with bitterness. However, Xiangwei suddenly pouted. "Then I'll be so happy." "What?" Yang Cheng was stunned. The woman bit her plump red lips. "If you lose your memory, I'll have the chance to elope with you. That way, other women won't be able to snatch you from me." Yang Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This logic was outrageous, but it made him feel especially guilty and helpless. He caressed Xiangwei's cheek and said softly, "Promise me, in the future, if there's anything you need to discuss with me, don't worry too much. Don't worry about what I'm busy with or who I'm with. Even if you want me to eat breakfast with you, go shopping with you, or even talk to you, I will try my best to satisfy you. Don't be too hard on yourself. Let me know what you want and what you want to do. Don't think too much about me. Think more about your own safety." "Why are you suddenly saying this? It's as if I'm very pitiful. It's just that it's rare for me to come out for a walk." Xiangwei giggled. "I'm not joking. I'm serious," Yang Cheng said seriously. Xiangwei stared at him blankly for a while before nodding. She then leaned on Yang Cheng's chest and asked, "Is the wedding done? When did you return to Zhonghai?" Yang Cheng scratched his head and said with a wry smile, "We'll go down the mountain first and walk slowly for a while. What happened these days is a bit complicated, and I also have some new information to tell you. Your cultivation. It seems like you have to speed up the process." Xiangwei was stunned for a moment. It was obvious that she didn't understand what he meant, but she felt that it wasn't a simple situation. She obediently got up and held hands with Yang Cheng as they slowly walked down the mountain. The sky in early September wouldn't turn dark too early. Accompanied by the slanting sun, the two of them walked while Yang Cheng recounted what had happened these days. When Xiangwei heard that Yang Cheng had actually planned to become enemies with the entire Hongming and the hidden families, and had even killed 2 special envoys, she couldn't help but open her red lips and widen her eyes, revealing a rare, adorable expression. Yang Cheng asked a little apprehensively, "Darling Xiangwei, do you think I'm too cruel?" Xiangwei blinked and then shook her head. "No, you're doing this to protect us, so that we can be like you, become stronger and live longer. I can understand. But I might have to kill countless people, and they might not have any enmity with me." Yang Cheng sighed. Xiangwei smiled cheerfully and said, "It's fine. At most, when I become stronger, I'll help you kill them. Or you can bring the person you want to kill to me, and I'll help you take their life." Yang Cheng was overjoyed. This is what I like the most about you. It's just killing people. The weak are prey to the strong. If they refuse to cooperate with me, then they will all die. They can only blame themselves for blocking our path. I won't be lenient, so you don't have to worry too much. Yes, I believe you. Xiang Wei smiled warmly. Yang Cheng carefully sized up Xiang Wei's eyes. Compared to the past, her sparkling eyes were as gentle as before, but there seemed to be a bit more indifferent and ethereal. Xiang Wei, darling, your realm seems to have reached a whole new realm. When we return, I'll give you a few of the Bodhi pills that I stole. If you use them properly, you should be able to reach the Xiantian realm. Speaking of this, Xiang Wei couldn't hide her joy. Hubby, I understand what I was thinking about on the mountain last time. That thunderstorm made me understand a lot of things, but you can't say it, right? Yang Cheng smiled. Xiang Wei nodded in distress. I can't say it. I clearly know a lot, but I just don't know how to describe it. That's right. Everyone's comprehension of the Tao is different. It can't be described with words. Yang Cheng sighed with emotion. I told you that Grandma Yin of the Yang family in Yin Jing used some shallow methods to barely guide me in breaking through to the deity transformation stage. But that also depends on my own luck. For now, my comprehension of the Tao is much stronger than hers, but she was the one who guided me. That's why I said that this thing can only be understood and not explained. Chapter 10:10. With regards to Yang Chen's words, Rose agreed with him. Furrowing her brows, she said, what I feel now is that I can perform some amazing techniques, but I just don't have the energy to support it. Maybe it's because my cultivation and realm don't match. Yang Cheng smiled. I'm looking forward to seeing what my Xiang Wei has learned. I'll check it out for you when we get back. Try to make a breakthrough in 2 days. Xiang Wei asked curiously, Hubby, are you leaving again? You seem to be in a hurry. Yang Cheng said helplessly, it's all because of Li Dun from the Li family in Beijing. His wedding with Miss Tang is in a few days. I'll be back when I'm done. With the Empress? Xiang Wei asked with a mischievous smile. Yang Cheng smiled awkwardly. Don't mention it. I'll be thankful as long as you don't bring our daughter. Daughter? Xiang Wei exclaimed. Hubby, when did you have a child? This was what women were most concerned about. Yang Chen quickly told her about Lanlin's adoption and introduced Lanlan. Only then did Xiang Wei understand. She couldn't help but giggle. I'm going to meet her when we get back. Since she's adopted, she's our child. What are you talking about? Even if she's your biological child, no matter who gave birth to her, everyone else has to treat her as their own. Yang Cheng pretended to be angry. You're thinking so far ahead. Xiang Wei pouted. But based on the current situation, I think adoption is more reliable. I want to adopt one too. I'll talk to Sister Lin about raising a child. Yang Cheng laughed. Hee, you're not afraid of Ruashi. Anshin is very sneaky. When she sees Ruashi, she'll break out in cold sweat like a mouse seeing a cat. Xiang Wei curled her lips. What's there to be afraid of? Didn't you say that you have a 1-year appointment with the Empress? That's true, but the 1-year deadline is almost up. It'll expire in March next year. It's already September. Yang Cheng sighed. Time flies, but I don't think Ruashi will do anything overboard when that time comes. After all, we've all changed. Xiang Wei nodded and smiled. Let's go back. Chinny should be off work soon. Your mother-in-law should be back too. Yang Chen's head started to hurt at the mention of Ma Guifeng, but when he thought of the Kai sisters in Jiangshan, he decided that it was better to stay here. Bringing Xiang Wei back, his speed was always affected. By the time they returned to the courtyard in the western suburbs of Zhonghai, it was already nighttime. Knowing that Yang Cheng and Xiang Wei would come back together, Emo Chinny specially asked her mother to buy a lot of fresh ingredients when she went home. The mother and daughter were already busy in the kitchen. When Xiang Wei entered the door, Emo Chinny happily went forward, wiped her hands on her apron, and hugged Xiang Wei. You're back. Did you run into some trouble? It could be seen that the two women had become as close as family during the days they lived together. Xiang Wei nodded. I'll tell you at the dinner table later. I'm fine. On the other side, Ma Guifeng hadn't seen Yang Cheng for a while, so she coughed and said, Yang Cheng, I don't know how busy you are, but even if we don't participate in the wedding, we can't not contact each other for such a long time, right? Yang Cheng's forehead immediately beaded with sweat. It seemed that the fact that her daughter couldn't have a wedding made her mother, Ma Guifeng, feel quite unbalanced. Yang Cheng nodded respectfully. Mom is right. This is also an old problem of mine. I can't always remember to call. Ma Guifeng stopped there. After all, things had already come to this point, so she accepted it. She then called for Yang Cheng to sit down and make tea for him. It was rare for him to have a quiet meal with his two beloved women, and one of his mother-in-law was sitting next to him. Yang Cheng's dinner was more of a warm feeling. Although Ma Guifeng didn't give him a good look, she was a typical mother-in-law who doted on her son-in-law. From time to time, she would put food in Yang Cheng's bowl, and she even specially made 2 pots of rice for Yang Cheng. She really looked at Yang Cheng as a pig. Fortunately, Yang Cheng's appetite was also huge, and the big table of food was almost finished. However, Ma Guifeng was really annoyed with Yang Cheng's flirting, so she didn't really laugh from the beginning to the end. Especially when she heard that Lin Ruoxi had adopted a child, her heart became heavier. Yang Cheng, if you have a child with this girl in the future, you can't let the child be bullied by you and General Lin's child. Ma Guifeng had already started to worry about her future grandson. Yang Cheng's face was full of embarrassment, while Mo Qianyi's face was red. Mom, what are you talking about? How far away is that? The woman couldn't restrain her embarrassment. Yang Cheng smiled foolishly and said, Mom, you're thinking too much. Ruoxi likes children more than she likes me. No matter who gave birth to the child, she will like it. I believe that. I heard from Qianyi that General Lin has been doing charity work with the old CEO since he was young, and he even volunteered at the orphanage. It's such a pity that such a good daughter is related to you. Ma Guifeng shook her head and sighed. Yang Cheng's face was bitter. Why does it seem like I'm a toad eating swan meat? Mo Qianyi pouted and said, Mom, what are you talking about? How can you say that about your son-in-law? Ma Guifeng turned her chopsticks and knocked on her daughter's head. Silly girl, if you weren't a couple with General Lin, would you not be at the wedding? Mo Qianyi stuck out her tongue. Even if there's no Ruoxi, it should be little sister Qiangwei. She knew Yang Cheng before me. Is that so? Ma Guifeng looked at the quiet Qiangwei curiously. Qiangwei pursed her lips and smiled. I won't marry Yang Cheng. I'm not suitable. Yang Cheng was full of uneasiness. Ma Guifeng's words were nothing more than to arouse his guilt. There was no doubt that she succeeded. He really didn't have the face to face his beloved women. Thinking about it carefully, if he hadn't married Lin Ruoxi by accident, perhaps it would have been Mo Qianyi who had been with him earlier and was more suitable to be his real girlfriend. But there were no ifs in the world. He could only be thick-skinned and try his best to take care of every woman. He smiled and accepted Ma Guifeng's complaints. At the same time, on the hilltop near Jinshan village, the misty rain nunnery that had been burned and collapsed. 2 figures, a man and a woman, quietly landed on the open space under the night sky. This woman, dressed in a long gown, was beautiful and elegant. Impressively, she was Abbess Misty Rain, who had taken off her nun's hat and let her black hair down. The man's appearance and outline were somewhat similar to Misty Rain, but he was tall and dignified. He was dressed in a black robe and looked quite arrogant. Damn it, he's already gone. We're too late. Misty Rain stomped her feet angrily. The man's face darkened. Don't worry, Feiyu. Since you've seen the real person, with your photographic memory, no matter how exquisite your drawing skills are, you can just draw the person's appearance and send those Huang stagers to check it out. There aren't many young men with cultivation outside of Huaxia, so there should be some clues. Abbess Misty Rain's eyes lit up. Big brother, you're so thoughtful. I'll draw it later. That damn brat. How dare he destroy my place of cultivation? Our Yin Feiyu has never been humiliated like this. When you find that person, I'll go with you. My sister, Yin Feiyun, can't be bullied by anyone. But be careful not to let too many people know about this. If it gets to my father's ears, he cares about his reputation the most. If you're humiliated like this, it'll be a disgrace to him. And I can't avoid a lecture. I'm me and he's him. What does it have to do with him? Plus, he doesn't care about me, Yin Feiyu said disdainfully. Sister, don't talk about father like that. He's been thinking about you and third sister all these years, hasn't he? Don't quarrel with father anymore. Haven't you had enough about what happened back then? Yin Feiyun frowned. If he was thinking about us, he wouldn't have ignored me for so many years. He didn't even look for third sister. Is it so hard for you to apologize to father? Yin Feiyu said coldly. Big brother, I asked you to help me, not to listen to you. If you don't agree, I'll think of a way myself. I don't want to apologize to that old man. I didn't do anything wrong. Yin Feiyun sighed. Fine. If that's the case, go ahead and look for him. Tell me when you find him. I'll return to the All Heavens Island first. Then, the man's figure flashed and disappeared from the mountain peak. Only Yin Feiyu was left standing quietly by the broken wall. She looked at the stars in the dark sky and seemed to be reminiscing about something. Chapter 10:11. In Xiangwei's bedroom in the Shijiao villas of Zhonghai. The air was filled with the fragrance of roses, mixed with a woman's perfume, and he could smell a faint warmth. On Xiangwei's big and soft bed, a woman in a thin black lace nightdress was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. She was immersed in her own world. Beside her, Yang Chun sat quietly on the edge of the bed. Even his breathing seemed to be soundless. Just now, Yang Chun took out a Bodhi pill and gave it to Xiangwei. Then he asked Xiangwei to use the method he taught her to digest the efficacy of the Bodhi pill and speed up the absorption of spiritual qi to nourish and expand the meridians in her body. Although the Bodhi pill was a low-level elixir, it was very effective for cultivators in the postnatal realm. Once Xiangwei digested the elixir, she could use the spiritual qi more efficiently. Yang Chun used his divine sense to check on her, only to find that the true qi in her body was being purified and refined more than 10 times faster than usual. It was like a machine that refined oil suddenly had a new core component. Not only did the refined oil increase, but the efficiency and quality of the refined oil also increased. No wonder Xiao Qiqing said that elixirs were more attractive to cultivators than Dharma treasures. The Bodhi pill was not only a one-time use treasure, but it was also very effective. It was a pity that the efficacy of the Bodhi pill was almost negligible for cultivators in the tribulation passing stage. Otherwise, Yang Chun would have tried one. The aqua-blue spiritual qi around Xiangwei was very rich. Maybe it was because the Tao this woman learned came from the thunderstorm, so it was more inclined to the water attribute of the 5 elements. However, there was nothing special about it. Different paths led to the same goal, so it didn't have much of an impact on one's cultivation. As time ticked by, Yang Chun didn't dare to disturb him and silently stood guard by the side. Gradually, Xiangwei's skin became more and more lustrous, as if it was covered by a layer of moist film. It was white and tender, as if water would drip out if someone touched it lightly. Along with the expansion of the realm, the unique charm of a woman brought with it a new ethereal charm. Yang Chun couldn't take his eyes off Xiangwei, who was quietly sitting cross-legged in the middle of so many halos. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Originally, a woman's appearance was not as exquisite as Lin Ruoshi's. However, at this moment, Xiangwei's beauty was not inferior at all. No wonder that none was so obsessed with cultivation. Women's cultivation could indeed improve their beauty. Yang Chun thought unscrupulously. Just as he was looking at the woman in a trance, Xiangwei seemed to have receded from her cultivation, and her dantian had reached an unprecedented level of fullness. She subconsciously withdrew from her immersion, opening her almond-shaped eyes in a daze. Xiangwei saw that Yang Chun was staring at her eagerly. Even the corner of his mouth was about to drip with saliva. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Hubby, what's wrong with you? Yang Chun hurriedly sucked in his saliva. He didn't feel embarrassed at all. In any case, he wasn't looking at other people's women on the street. Darling Xiangwei, let's not cultivate tonight. Why? Didn't you say that you were in a hurry to wait for me to break through? Xiangwei asked, puzzled. Yang Chun grinned and rubbed his hands. Life must be full of joy. It's been a while since we've been intimate. How can we waste such a beautiful scene? Xiangwei immediately understood what the man was thinking. She felt that it was funny, but at the same time, she also felt helpless. Without waiting for her to say anything more, Yang Cheng had already pounced on her and hugged the beauty's soft waist, causing Qiang Wei's soft and plump body to squeeze into his embrace. With one hand on his face, he bent his head from the side and kissed her heavily. His other hand went around the woman's chest, and through the thin, translucent lace, he gently rubbed the towering fullness, teasing the raised, captivating redness. Crushing the woman's sweet and delicious lips, after a wet and passionate kiss, Yangshan only felt refreshed, while Rose, on the other hand, was panting from the sudden burst of passion. Everyone says that those who succeed in cultivation shouldn't be enlightened and have a pure heart and few desires. Why is our family's mind always filled with these shameful things? Qiang Wei jokingly scolded as she poked the man's forehead. Yang Cheng chuckled and said, "What's on TV is all lies. If you don't have any desires, then what's the point of cultivating? I don't care if others want to live forever or become invincible. I want you to cultivate so that you can always be healthy and beautiful. If I want to become stronger, it's nothing more than to not be bullied by others. If I don't have fun in my life, then what's the point of cultivating? No matter what, you're right. Not only do I have reason, I also have physical strength. Tonight, you and Chinny won't be able to escape." Hearing that, Qiang Wei's beautiful face paled. "Yeah, you still want two people together?" Without waiting for the woman to say anything, Yang Cheng had already pressed her down on the big bed and pressed her down heavily from behind. He lifted the hem of her nightgown, revealing her full and round buttocks. What made Yang Cheng go crazy was that the woman was not wearing any underwear. A deep, soul-stirring honey seam was already exposed in front of his eyes. Swallowing his saliva, Yang Cheng clicked his tongue and said, "Darling Qiang Wei, if it was in ancient times, you would be a witch of the devil's sect. You even said that my thoughts were impure, and that the two of us, isn't it all because I want to cooperate with you?" Qiang Wei closed her eyes tightly, her eyelashes trembling. Yang Cheng was overjoyed. He removed the restraints on his body and quickly entered the woman's body. Although they hadn't been intimate for a while, the two of them already had a tacit understanding. As they were familiar with each other, they quickly entered a state of flirting. Entangled, spirit and flesh fused. After enjoying 3 full waves of the scarlet rhythm, Yang Cheng finally let go of the woman who was already in a daze and was about to leave her body. After checking the villa, Ma Guifeng had already fallen asleep in her room. He hurriedly went to Mo Chinny's room next door and brought the woman, who was still in her pajamas, back to Qiang Wei's room. Before Mo Chinny could cry out in alarm, she was blocked by Yang Cheng's mouth. The woman originally thought that Yang Cheng would only accompany Qiang Wei to sleep tonight, so she planned to sleep after reading for a while. Although she also liked to be with men, it didn't mean that she was obsessed with doing things at night. In fact, spiritual satisfaction was more important to Mo Chinny, but she didn't expect that she still couldn't be spared. What made her even more embarrassed was that she actually had to be carried to Qiang Wei's bed. The feeling of being tormented by Yang Cheng on the other side was much more intense than just the two of them. Although the two women had been with Yang Cheng more than once before, it didn't mean that they could get used to this kind of thing so easily. When Mo Chinny only had a silk pajamas with all the buttons undone, Yang Cheng held her slender waist tightly and entered from behind. Qiang Wei smiled generously and looked at Mo Chinny's expression with great interest. It seemed that she had been tormented enough. When Qiang Wei saw that Mo Chinny suffered the same treatment as her and kept moaning, she was very satisfied. "Chinny, you look so beautiful like this. Your face is so red." Qiang Wei giggled. Mo Chinny was immersed in a state of struggle between heaven and earth. On one hand, Yang Cheng's rush came like a tide, and on the other hand, she felt the sense of shame and excitement of being watched by Qiang Wei. This kind of erotic feeling caused the woman to continuously contract her body, causing Yang Cheng, who was behind her, to also enjoy a more wonderful taste than usual. When Yang Cheng completed the first round of sprint, Mo Chinny was like soft mud, completely lying on the big bed. She opened her pink lips and looked at Xiangwei with a bitter expression. You can laugh at me. You know that my physical strength is not as good as yours. Xiangwei lay down and hugged Imo Qinyi's pink long neck. Suddenly, she very naturally kissed her on the face, and then kissed Imo Qinyi's red lips. Imo Qinyi also seemed to be very cooperative. Her cherry lips wriggled, and her tongue intersected with Xiangwei's. The delicate lilac tongue nimbly touched each other, slightly entangling. The two charming and beautiful women were naked, their full breasts slightly pressed against each other, lying on the bed and kissing each other. Yang Cheng, who was planning to let Imo Qinyi rest for a while and continue the second round, immediately stared blankly when he saw this scene. This scene was too ambiguous. Looking at the way the two women kissed, they were not very unfamiliar. They were cooperating with each other, and it seemed like they had done this often on a daily basis. After the two women's pink lips parted, they even pulled open a sparkling silk thread in a daze at this time. The two women subconsciously turned their heads to look at Yang Cheng. Only then did the two women realize that there was a man watching them with great interest from behind. Yang Cheng recovered from his admiring gaze and smiled evilly. Good. The two of you secretly hid it from me and found a new lover. The two girls blushed, and Imo Qinyi complained, Isn't it all because of you? You insisted on us being together. And in the end, when you left that morning, Xiangwei woke up and said that she wanted to play kiss. I was still dreaming when she kissed me. What? You clearly agreed to it. Why are you blaming me for it? Xiangwei, who came from the underworld, was like a shy young girl at this moment, full of hidden bitterness. Yang Cheng laughed out loud. What are you guys explaining this for? It's not like I said that you guys can't do this. Seeing you guys love each other, I can't be happier. Darling Xiangwei, since you're also interested in women, why don't you find a chance to pull on Xin and Ming you over as well? When the time comes, the five of us will be together. I didn't. Xiangwei became anxious. Hubby, don't believe it. It's all Qinyi's nonsense. I only want to kiss her because I have a good relationship with her and we're very familiar with each other. I'm not that. Which one is it? Yang Cheng smiled evilly. It's, Xiangwei clenched her teeth, the kind of relationship between a woman and a woman. Hearing this, Imo Qinyi, who was weak, also burst out laughing. She pinched Xiangwei's face. Silly Xiangwei, hubby is just teasing you. Besides, even if you like women, what does it have to do with him? Xiangwei looked at Yang Cheng's mischievous eyes and realized that she had been tricked. She couldn't help but clench her teeth and pounce on Yang Cheng to strangle his neck. You guys ganged up to bully me. Yang Cheng didn't expect that Xiangwei would have such a crazy side to her. While laughing, he pressed the woman down on the big bed without backing down. Originally, Xiao Qianqian was helping you block it, but you came to me yourself. Fine, then I'll take turns. Sister Qinyi, save me. Whoa, a night of spring breeze and rain, begonia blooming. Chapter 10-12. After spending a night in Xiangwei's boudoir, Yang Cheng woke up in high spirits early in the morning. Imo Qinyi and Xiangwei were still naked, and most of their enchanting figures were exposed to the air. Fortunately, their physical fitness had been greatly improved, so they wouldn't catch a cold. Yang Cheng kissed his children's cheeks a few times in satisfaction, but the two women were murmuring in a daze. He didn't know what they were talking about, but they were too lazy to open their eyes. They must have been very tired from the battle that lasted until the early hours of the morning. Leaving the two women sleeping in each other's arms, Yang Cheng put on his clothes, hummed a tune, and ran home to eat breakfast. Yang Cheng felt that he was very wise to gather the women in one place. Such a life of living like an immortal was what he dreamed of. Of course, if Lin Ruoshi was more sensible, such as not sleeping with Lan Lan, it would be more to his liking. As soon as he entered the living room, the air was filled with the strong aroma of breakfast. To Yang Cheng's surprise, it was reasonable to say that the family hadn't started eating at this time, but it was surprisingly early today. All the women in the family were already eating at the dining table. Lin Ruoshi was dressed neatly. She was wearing a European-style chiffon top and a layered lace skirt. Her white stockings outlined her slender and tight calves. She looked elegant and refined. She didn't look like she was going to work, but she was particularly pleasing to the eye. Although Hui Lin, who was now a big star, was also dressed very well, regardless of appearance or temperament, compared with his sister, there was always a gap. She seemed to be a foil. At this moment, sitting next to Lin Ruoxi was Lan Lan, who was holding a big soup bowl and eating noodles. The noodles seemed to be specially made for the little girl, and no one else had it. She changed into her favorite blue skirt. For Lan Lan's physique, she didn't need to worry about keeping warm in the cold autumn, so it didn't matter to her. With Lin Ruoxi's love for her daughter, she probably let Lan Lan like these. If she really liked to wear blue skirts, she could simply buy a bunch of them and wear them one after another. The little girl just finished a big bowl of noodles with pickled cabbage and shredded pork, and saw Yang Cheng enter the door. "Bad uncle is back." Lan Lan raised her head and shouted in her sweet voice. Yang Cheng was embarrassed. He originally planned to sneak upstairs and pretend to spend the night at home, but he didn't expect everyone to wake up early today. All of a sudden, the women in the house looked at Yang Cheng strangely. Obviously, everyone knew that Yang Cheng went out to spend the night again last night. Guo Xiuhua and Mother Wang just found out that the couple had gotten married, but they didn't expect that because Lan Lan and Lin Ruoxi slept together. Yang Cheng immediately went out to sleep. This was actually a coincidence, but in the eyes of the women, Yang Cheng was very thirsty. Guo Xiuhua glanced at Yang Cheng reproachfully and said without a change in expression, "Why did you go out for a stroll so early in the morning? Come and have breakfast." Yang Cheng was stunned, and he admired his mother's eloquence. Yes, he went out for a stroll early in the morning, not to sleep with another woman in the middle of the night. Although everyone knew it, at least it sounded better. Yang Cheng sat on his seat with a smile, and Mother Wang also calmly served him millet porridge. Lin Ruoxi only glanced at Yang Cheng when he entered the door and didn't say anything. She just took the breakfast that Lan Lan wanted to eat and did all the work of the nanny Minwan. After eating 2 mouthfuls, Yang Cheng couldn't help but ask, why did everyone wake up so early today? Didn't they usually wake up half an hour later? Jinxiu pouted and said, "It's all because of Lan Lan. She woke up very early and shouted that she was hungry downstairs. Sister Ruoxi woke up to make breakfast for her. How could she be so busy?" In the end, Mother Wang and Aunt Gua got up, and we were also called up. Hiss! Yang Chan sucked in a breath of cold air. This little girl's treatment was way too high. He said sourly, "Ruoxi, you can't spoil her too much. How can you make breakfast for her immediately? She'll be spoiled if you do that. She's still growing up. It's not like she's so poor that she has no food to eat. Do you want her to starve?" Lin Ruoxi said without looking up. Yang Cheng was speechless. That's not what I mean. If you get up early and want to eat, I will also make breakfast for you. Of course, if you're at home." Lin Ruoxi said coldly and glanced at Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng immediately broke out in a cold sweat. This woman was indeed extremely unhappy in her heart, but she didn't say it out loud. Thinking about it, he had just made substantial progress, and in the end, he immediately ran out to fool around with other women. There was nothing he could do. Who told him to come all the way like this? He could only bury his head and continue eating. He couldn't afford to offend her, but he could at least hide. After breakfast, Lan Lan, a little girl, ate a whole 3 cages of meat buns, half a pot of millet porridge, a bowl of noodles, and negligible side dishes. She almost took care of most of the food. Although Yang Cheng didn't eat freely, he estimated that if he really did, he would only eat so much. Any more, and he would feel tired. On the other hand, Lan Lan only touched her little belly and jumped off the chair. After taking the panda plushie from the nanny, Minwan, she skipped over to watch TV. She didn't seem to be out of the ordinary at all. Mother Wang and the others already knew Lan Lan, so they weren't too surprised. She smiled at Yang Cheng and said, "Young master, with Lan Lan's appetite, being your daughter is too compatible." Yang Cheng's face twitched. This doesn't make sense. When I was her age, I couldn't eat so much. This is called the student surpassing the master. Huilin interrupted with a smile and a serious expression. Jinxiu rolled her eyes. "Sister Huilin, your singing is great, but your use of idioms is more reliable. How can this be considered a good thing? If Lan Lan goes to school and the children see her appetite, not to mention the children, even the teachers will be scared to tears. Hearing this, the adults were worried. Indeed, Lan Lan was too special. It would be troublesome to raise her in the future. They couldn't let a child stay at home all day, not interacting with the people around her, not entering society. How could she become a real adult? Lin Ruashi frowned. Looking at Lan Lan, who was watching cartoons on the sofa, she was worried. At this moment, Yang Cheng reached out and held the woman's shoulder from behind, squeezing it gently. Lin Ruashi turned around and saw the man looking at her with a warm and comforting gaze. "Don't worry, my daughter. Yang Cheng doesn't need to be compared to ordinary people. No one can make her suffer, right, my wife?" Lin Ruashi's heartstrings trembled. She was enveloped by a sense of harmony and blushed unconsciously. "No, it's not your daughter. Lan Lan is my daughter." Lin Ruashi took Yang Cheng's hand away, turned around, and hurriedly walked over to Lan Lan. Yang Cheng curled his lips, shook his head, and sighed. What a woman who doesn't follow the script. At least give me a kiss or something. The acting on TV is indeed unreliable. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Guo Xuehua and the rest were puzzled. Why would someone come so early in the morning? It can't be someone looking for Sister Hui Lin to talk about work, right? Could it be that the reporters found out that Sister Hui Lin is living here? Jinxiu asked curiously. Lin Ruashi sat on the sofa and hugged Lan Lan. She turned around and said, "Impossible. I've already issued a warning in private. If any media dares to come here to do an interview and harass Hui Lin's private life, I'll make them go bankrupt." Jinxiu stuck out her pink tongue and felt a chill run down her spine. Mother Wang shook her head helplessly and said, "You've said so much. Won't you know when you open the door?" As she spoke, Mother Wang walked to the door and looked through the peephole. She was slightly startled, but she still quickly opened the door. When everyone saw it, their expressions changed. They saw the neatly dressed and radiant Mo, Qianni, and Xiang Wei standing outside the door with smiles on their faces. The two women were even carrying large shopping bags, but no one knew what was inside. "Qianni, Xiang Wei." Guo Xuehua recovered from her daze and revealed a gentle smile. "Why are you two here?" Yang Cheng's eyes widened. They had only been apart for less than an hour. What were they playing at? Because Guo Xuehua and Ma Guifang had been living together for a period of time, and she had a good relationship with Guo Xuehua in private, she often met Mo Qianni and Xiang Wei. Although they weren't official daughters-in-law, in Guo Xuehua's eyes, those who were sincere to Yang Cheng were all good women, and they had a good relationship. At the same time, because they weren't daughters-in-law, it was convenient for her to talk to them. She really enjoyed chatting with the two sensible women. "Engua, we heard from Yang Cheng that Ruashi adopted a daughter. We were curious, so we came to take a look," Xiang Wei said as she glanced at Lan Lan, who was sitting on the sofa. Chapter 10:13. Xiang Wei had been the president of the Red Thorn Society for many years, so she was quite skilled in speaking. She directly said adopted by Ruashi, which meant that this daughter had less of a relationship with Yang Cheng. From their point of view, Yang Cheng's first child naturally hadn't been born yet, so even if Lin Ruashi adopted a daughter, there was no point in taking the lead in the issue of children. When Lin Ruashi heard this, she couldn't help but frown, but there was nothing she could say. It was obvious that Guo Xuehua liked the two girls, so she could only tolerate it. Mo Qianni only knew about this after hearing Xiang Wei's words, so she was naturally filled with anticipation. Normally, the two women would be too embarrassed to come over so early in the morning, but the fact that Yang Cheng suddenly had a daughter was enough to make them treat it as an emergency. Lan Lan grabbed the panda and lay on the sofa. Her big black eyes blinked as she looked at the two women. Although the girl was young, she had a sense of beauty. It was obvious that the two beautiful big sisters had aroused Lan Lan's interest. So cute. Mo Qianni couldn't help but cover her mouth. It was no wonder that women couldn't resist. Lan Lan's appearance, coupled with her outstanding innocent temperament, was simply a killer for both men and women. Xiang Wei's eyes also revealed a bit of love. "I heard from Yang Cheng that her name is Lan Lan." Hearing this, Lin Ruashi glared at Yang Cheng. She didn't need to think to know that Yang Cheng had been with Qiang Wei last night. After Guo Shuihua understood the two women's intentions, she felt that it was quite funny. She pushed Yang Cheng's lower back from behind, and the meaning was very clear. You're in a mess now. Then she said, that's right, we'll see each other often in the future, so it's good to get to know each other first. With that, Guo Shuihua beckoned to Lan Lan. Come, Lan Lan, come over to Grandma's side. Let's, Guo Shuihua paused in the middle of her sentence. All right, what should I call them? On the other hand, Qiang Wei spoke quickly. Call her Yinyang. Ah, Guo Shuihua was stunned. That was too direct. Wasn't this directly establishing their relationship as sharing a husband? In ancient times, there was a difference in status between the concubines of the first branch and the concubines of the second branch. But now, it was obvious that there were a few more lovers. Lin Ruoxi gritted her teeth and glared at Yang Cheng with resentment. And Yang Cheng helplessly spread out his hands. This was not something he could control. Qiang Wei's personality was originally more untamable. When she was gentle, she was like water, but when she was strong, she was also very persistent. Lan Lan listened to Guo Shuihua's words. After putting down the panda, she nimbly jumped over the sofa and rushed in front of Guo Shuihua in the blink of an eye. She hugged Guo Shuihua's thigh and tilted her little head, looking straight at Qiang Wei and Lin Ruoxi. Guo Shuihua touched her granddaughter's soft hair and sighed with a smile. Lan Lan, let's get to know each other. This is Annie Qiang Wei, and this is Annie Qianni. Lanlan's little face was a little confused. Grandma, what is an auntie? Guo Shuihua also didn't know how to explain to a child. For a moment, the atmosphere was stiff. It's the other mothers of the same generation as your mother, Guo Shuihua said after thinking for a while. Lan Lan pouted and looked at the two girls who were full of anticipation. But Lan Lan only has one mother. Qiang Wei and Mo Qianni were slightly disappointed, but Lin Ruoxi's eyes flashed with joy. Lin Ruoxi walked forward and bent down to touch Lanlan's face. If Lan Lan doesn't want to say it, then don't. It's okay. Just when Lan Lan was about to nod, she saw Qiang Wei suddenly take out a large teddy bear from the big shopping bag in her hand. The soft fur matched with exquisite workmanship, and the color was bright and soft. Obviously, it was a very high-quality doll. Of course, its charmingly naive look was very cute. Lan Lan, Andy's gift for you. Lan Lan, who was about to return to Lin Ruoxi's side, couldn't take her eyes off the big toy when she saw it. Mo Qianni looked at Lin Ruoxi embarrassedly, but she also took out a big box from the big shopping bag. But this time, it was an exquisite Barbie doll gift box. Lan Lan blinked her bright eyes. She looked at the big bear and the Barbie, and her little face revealed a happy smile. Suddenly, Lan Lan rushed forward and grabbed the gifts from the two girls' hands. Because Lanlan's hands were small, she could only hold a corner of the gift and drag it on the ground. But it was obvious that Lan Lan had already accepted the gift. Then, to everyone's surprise, Lan Lan raised her head and called out sweetly, Auntie Qiang Wei, Annie Qianni. Cough, cough, cough. Yang Cheng coughed violently because he had choked. Everyone else had different expressions on their faces, especially Lin Ruoxi, who was on the verge of breaking down. If it wasn't for the strong mental fortitude of women, not only would they be in disbelief, they might even collapse to the ground. Lan, Lan Lan. Lin Ruoxi couldn't help but scream. You unlucky child. How could you be bought over so easily? Mother Wang and Guo Shuihua looked at Lin Ruoxi strangely. Jinxiu mumbled, Sister Ruoxi, why does your word sound like what Sister Tang Wan would say when she scolds Tang Tang? She called Tang Tang an unlucky child. Who will be like her? She didn't even invent this. At the mention of Tang Wan, Lin Ruoxi was extremely angry. Her face was red, and she bit her lower lip. She was so angry that she was about to cry. Lan Lan walked to Lin Ruoxi's calf and hugged it. She rubbed her face against Lin Ruoxi's thigh and said coquettishly, Mommy is Mommy. Auntie is Auntie. Mommy is the best. This child, why do you know how to flatter and take bribes at such a young age? Lin Ruoxi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Guo Shuihua and the others giggled, while Qiang Wei and Mo Qianni looked at each other and smiled knowingly. Yang Chung, who was watching from the back, rubbed his chin and nodded to himself. This child is indeed suitable to be my daughter. She's so cooperative. A certain someone thought unscrupulously. But this way, the atmosphere became much more harmonious. As it was the weekend, other than Jinxiu, who went for military training, Hui Lin, who went to rehearsal, Lin Ruoshi, and Imo Chini were not in a hurry to go to the company. The family sat in the living room, drinking black tea, chatting and laughing, talking about Lan Lan. A child's senses were the most direct and sensitive. She could easily feel the kindness of Chiang Wei and Imo Chini towards the little girl. Soon, Lan Lan was able to run back and forth among the three women. This change made Lin Ruoshi feel a little uncomfortable. It was as if her heart was divided into three pieces. Fortunately, Lan Lan only knew how to call her mommy, which allowed the women to comfort themselves. After more than an hour, someone rang the doorbell again. With the previous experience, the women had their own guesses. Sure enough, when Mother Wong opened the door, there stood no one but Choi Yun, An Xin, and Lu Mingyu. And without exception, the three women were holding gift bags of different colors in their hands. Obviously, they were gifts for the children. Guo Shuahua smiled speechlessly. You guys are really fast. It seems that Lan Lan will have 3 more concubines. Choi Yun and the others had just greeted Guo Shuahua. Hearing this, they realized that Xiang Wei and Mo Chini were also there. For a moment, the 3 women blushed with embarrassment. Lin Ruoshi couldn't be angry at Guo Shuahua. She could only secretly pinch Yang Cheng's waist and said coldly, "Are you trying to make me angry on purpose? Why are all of you here?" Yang Cheng smiled bitterly. "Baby Ruoshi, let's be reasonable. You told Yonian yourself. Then why are Mingyu and Anshin here? With Yonian's carefree personality, isn't it just a matter of 2 or 3 minutes to build a good relationship with others? Of course, she would tell everyone about it." Yang Cheng said innocently. In fact, Yang Cheng's guess was not far from the truth. Originally, Choi Yun wanted to come alone, but it was awkward to face Lin Ruoshi alone. So, she simply told Lu Mingyu and Anshin. Since the women had opened the window, there was no need to hide anything. It was almost impossible to get anything from Lin Ruoshi. It was better to build a good relationship and advance and retreat together. Lan Lan was very clever. She grabbed the corner of Guo Shuahua's clothes and asked sweetly, "Grandma, what kind of concubines are they?" Hearing this question from her daughter, Lin Ruoshi almost fainted. This little traitor was addicted to taking bribes. Chapter 10:14. At this time, Guo Shuahua couldn't care less about Lin Ruoshi. In her opinion, Lin Ruoshi, as the eldest wife, should be more magnanimous. After all, a lot of things had been said in Beijing. She had already given the family bracelet and the old man's commander seal, so it was only right for her to endure it. Thus, Guo Shuahua smiled and introduced Choi Yun and the other 2 girls to her granddaughter. Of course, after Lan Lan happily called out the 3 new aunts, the gift she received also made the little girl beam with joy. Anshin complained to Yang Cheng, "Hubby, you're too biased. You live so close to me, but you didn't even tell me that you adopted your daughter. You still had to wait for Yonian to tell me." Yang Cheng grinned. I just adopted her, so I didn't have the time to tell her." Lin Ruoshi coldly snorted and said, "What does this have to do with you? Don't misunderstand. Lan Lan is my daughter." When Anshin heard that it was Lin Ruoshi who spoke, she immediately shrank back and didn't dare to say anything. It seemed that the shadow in Lin Ruoshi's heart was not light. "Ruoshi, don't scare Anshin. She told me that you forced her to play games with you. Seriously, when you were young, you would only stop when the other girls had cramps in their legs. You were born an idiot at sports, and all your former classmates know that. Why bother?" Choi Yun said sympathetically, I'm not a sports idiot." Lin Ruoshi's face immediately turned red when she was exposed to the embarrassing things that happened in middle school. "Yonian, don't talk nonsense. Also, you're actually helping her?" Only then did Choi Yun realize that their relationship was different now. She covered her mouth in embarrassment. However, the other women had already heard it. Lu Mingyu had always regarded Lin Ruoshi's business methods as her idol. Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh and say, "So, General Lin's weakness is sports. No wonder the company has never organized sports activities." Yang Cheng interrupted abruptly. "There's another one. Ruoshi's class teacher told me that she has never passed her music class." "Yang Cheng, you go to hell." Lin Ruoshi completely lost her ladylike demeanor. She turned around and pounced on Yang Cheng, trying to strangle Yang Cheng's neck. Yang Cheng, on the other hand, rolled his eyes and stuck out his tongue as if he was about to die. Lan Lan immediately shouted, "Mommy, all the best. Mom, you can do it." All the women in the family laughed until they were rocking back and forth, and the house became a lot more lively. After a round of fun, everyone was immediately pulled closer to each other. Ever since Yang Cheng brought Lin Ruoshi to the wedding, the girls hadn't gathered together for a while. Everyone intentionally avoided that part and focused their attention on Lan Lan. It had to be said that while Lan Lan was easy to buy, she was also very dedicated. After giving the gifts, a group of aunties kissed and hugged her. The little girl did not refuse any of them, and very quickly, she rolled around on top of the girls' bodies in satisfaction. The group of women were already extremely beautiful. Lan Lan smelled the different body fragrances of the different aunties and hugged them happily. Lin Ruoshi looked at this scene and simply did not think too much about it. She secretly planned to give her daughter a lesson on loyalty at night. This daughter was too disloyal. Wasn't this the same logic as whoever has milk is a mother? Just as the group of women in the living room were laughing and chatting, Yang Cheng's phone vibrated. The girl's attention was immediately drawn over. Every woman was very interested in knowing who the man they liked usually picked up the phone from. Yang Cheng was stared at by everyone. He stiffly picked up the phone and saw that it was actually Tang Wan calling. It's Tang Wan. "Comrade Yang Cheng, you're really busy." The busybody Choi Yun peeked over and saw it clearly. Yang Cheng coughed dryly, picked up the phone, and asked Tang Wan, "You're not coming to see Lan Lan, are you?" On the other end of the phone, Tang Wan was silent for a moment. "It's the adopted girl, right? I don't want to see her, but I'm not in the mood right now." "What do you mean?" Yang Cheng felt that something was wrong with the woman's tone. "Didn't anyone tell you that the Yang family didn't inform you?" Tang Wan asked. Yang Cheng was stunned. "What message?" "Right now, if you have a computer beside you, go online and look at a few domestic and foreign portals and directly look at the headlines. I'm in Beijing with Tang Dang right now, and I just saw the news. We found out about it quite late, but it's already spread all over Beijing." Yang Cheng's expression changed slightly. He suddenly thought of something and hung up the phone. Lin Ruoshi saw that Yang Cheng's expression was not good and asked with concern, "Hubby, what happened?" In the eyes of a woman, Yang Cheng was definitely the type of person who wouldn't be worried even if the sky fell down. Guo Xuehua and the others also looked over in confusion. Yang Cheng did not make a sound. Instead, his figure flashed and he went to the second floor. He took out his laptop from his room and went downstairs to open it. When Yang Cheng opened the web page and logged into a Xia news portal, all the women who saw the headline all revealed shocked expressions at the same time. How is this possible?" Guo Xuehua was the first to shout out. The woman's face was deathly pale as she stood up in fear, clenching her fists tightly. Lin Ruoshi quickly got up and held on to Guo Xuehua's shoulders, comforting her. "Mom, don't be so agitated. Something must have gone wrong." The women were also extremely worried. Even Lu Mingyu, Anshin, and the other girls, who didn't understand politics, understood the seriousness of this news. Their gazes converged on Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng, whose face was as calm as water, sat quietly. From his deep eyes, one could not see the slightest bit of excitement, but it was as if there were raging waves hidden in the depths of his eyes. At this moment, the headlines on the internet were already so important that they were interspersed at a special time as an independent title. Furthermore, there were already detailed reports on major websites, especially those in the United States and Europe. The title was similar, but it was eye-catching and shocking. Huaxia's national humiliation. The content was straightforward and to the point. In general, it was that the former chairman of Huaxia, the vice premier, and the only remaining old Marshal Yang Gongming of the army, was actually not the biological son of the previous old Marshal Yang Yi. Instead, it was the son that his mother had given birth to after being annihilated by the invading army of the enemy during the war. What was even more shocking was that a few of old Marshal Yang Ye's old subordinates clearly knew that during the anti-Japanese war, Yang Yi had been discovered and outflanked by the enemy in advance, and was once shot in a vital part. Therefore, before Yang Yi officially married his wife, he was already infertile. As proof, there was even a DNA test report between the DNA left behind by Yang Yi and Yang Gongming's DNA posted on the internet. From the report, the two of them were not father and son at all. In addition, there were also memoirs left behind by a few old guards of Yang Yi about the time when Yang Yi was shot and when he returned to Yanjing and found out that his wife was pregnant. Most of these manuscripts had already turned yellow, and they looked extremely real. What was even more impossible to ignore was that those old guards who were far away from Yanjing were indeed the old subordinates of Yang Yi back then. In other words, they were the guards who knew about this past. Without exception, all of them were far away from the core circle of the central government, and were not put in an important position. Without a doubt, these meritorious elders were all leading their families to decline, which was very unreasonable. At the same time, it also proved that the situation was not false. The news on the internet was already overwhelming. Many websites were trying their best to delete the news that had obviously been leaked by hackers. However, it was too late. In this era of globalization, once such sensational news came out, it was impossible to hide it. At least, foreign websites would not let it go so easily. The United States, Europe, Japan, and other countries had already begun to broadcast this news on physical news and television. As an important leader of Huaxia's army for decades, and one of the core military power, the Yang family was actually a child left behind by the invaders. What was even more ridiculous was that because Yang Gongming's birth mother was raped by a group of allied forces, even the woman herself did not know which country had left this child behind. The only thing that could be confirmed was that Yang Gongming was a child left behind by the invaders of Asia. But even if he was a puppet army of Huaxia, he was still a bastard. Huaxia's army actually called a bastard their marshal. This was undoubtedly a slap to the entire Huaxia's army. This meant that the country that was reclaimed with blood still fell into the hands of the enemy's bloodline in the end. Although it could be said that this was not the Yang family betraying their country. From the perspective of the country's reputation and the people's psychology, how could they accept this? Wouldn't they become the laughingstock of those countries? After watching more than a dozen major web portals and a few news videos, Guoshuahua's face was as white as a sheet. She kept shaking her head with tears in her eyes. Yang Cheng closed his notebook, closed his eyes, and sighed deeply. What he was worried about had happened, and it was even worse than he had imagined. Yesterday at Zhonghai University, Yu Weibing had already told him this secret, but Yang Cheng did not think that Yu Weibing would really spread this news at the risk of his life. Moreover, Yang Cheng did not dare to completely guarantee that this was true. That was why Yang Cheng said that he would give him one day to think about it, and that he had to change the principle. But he did not expect that the news would be spread so early in the morning. Yang Cheng was very experienced in identifying the authenticity of photos. The photos on the internet were obviously taken directly with a camera without any retouching, and the documents and manuscripts seemed to be 90% authentic. In other words, Yang Gongming was indeed not the flesh and blood of the Yang family. Chapter 10:15. Since Yang Gongming had completely broken away from the Yang family bloodline, it meant that he, Yang Lai, and Yang Pejuan were no longer the descendants of the Yang family. Yang Cheng could ignore this, but the Yang family couldn't. Everyone's eyes were focused on Yang Cheng. For a traditional big family, this was no different from a disaster. No matter how famous the Yang family was, they were just a family. If they had to face the dissatisfaction and protest of the whole nation, then no matter how much credit they had made, they would inevitably be disbanded. Guo Shuahua was almost speechless. She wiped her tears and said, "Son, what do you think is going on? Looks like someone took advantage of the situation. Yang Chung murmured. After thinking for a while, he looked at Choi Yun and said, Yonyan, you know Yu Weibing and his son, right? They're the principal of Zhonghai University. Choi Yun knew the seriousness of the situation. She nodded carefully and said, the Yu family is an old family in Jiangnan. Of course I know them. What's wrong? Help me check the situation of Yu Weibing and his family. I suspect that something has happened to them, Yang Chung said. Choi Yun was curious why Yang Chung would say that, but she didn't dare to ask. She immediately made a call and asked the police on duty to check. But just as she asked, the police on the other side reported an important news that they had just received. Choi Yun hung up the phone and said with her eyes wide open, the Yu family all died last night. From Yu Weibing and his son Yu Zipeng, as well as their women and direct blood relatives, all died. They were shot to death. The entire house was silent. Even Xiao Lan Lan, who was pulling Barbie's hair just a moment ago, had obediently nestled in Lin Ruoxi's arms due to the heavy atmosphere, not daring to make sound. Yang Chung rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. You're really resourceful, killing with a borrowed knife without leaving any traces. Hubby, what do you mean? Lin Ruoxi asked in confusion. Yang Chung smiled bitterly and briefly told him about the secret he learned from Yu Weibing yesterday. The group of women were all shocked. They never thought that things would develop so quickly. Then the Yu clan's people, didn't you send people to kill them? Choi Yun asked confusedly. Yang Chung stretched out his hand and tapped on the woman's forehead. He scolded with a smile. What kind of brain do you have? If I wanted the Yu clan's people to die, wouldn't I be able to kill them? As for using a gun to solve it, this is obviously someone who also knows this secret, but doesn't want to reveal it, so he's deliberately using someone else to do his dirty work. Who would do such a thing? Who knows what happened back then? Other than the Yu clan, are there any other descendants of the old marshal's bodyguards? There definitely are, but it might not be those descendants who did it. Yang Chung sneered. If they didn't think that they could survive under my hands, no one would dare to do such a stupid thing. The more the women listened, the more confused they became. They didn't know what Yang Chung was thinking. Suddenly, Yang Chung stood up and said to Lin Ruoxi, Ruoxi, prepare some simple luggage. Lin Ruoxi put Lan Lan on the sofa, stood up, and asked, Are we going to Beijing? That's right. Yang Chung turned to Xiuehua and said, Mom, you have to go back too. Do you want to inform your grandfather that we're going back like this? Beijing must be in an uproar right now. Guo Xiuehua said anxiously. Yang Chung shook his head. It's useless to say anything. Li Dun is getting married in 2 days anyway. We'll have to go sooner or later. Let's go today. Lin Ruoxi didn't ask any more questions. She nodded quietly and went upstairs to pack her luggage. Yang Chung looked at the women with a comforting gaze. Don't worry, I'll be fine. It's just that I have to leave right after coming back. Once I'm done with Beijing, I'll teach you how to quickly improve your cultivation. Don't slack off when I'm away. The women forced a smile, but it was difficult to erase the gloomy atmosphere in the living room. At the same time, in the laboratory under the North Pole, the huge Mystic Ice laboratory had been expanded a lot, and the equipment designed by Yin Buan was operating as usual. At the operating table in the middle of the room, Wen Tao, who had already changed into a white coat, looked coldly at the experimental on the operating table, who was twisting and struggling but was restrained. This test subject was none other than Ning Guodong. Ning Guodong was lying naked on the white operating table. His face was ferocious, and his veins were bulging all over his body. His muscles looked explosive. Ugh! Ah! Ning Guodong's throat made the sound of grinding gears. The pain was unimaginable, as if his body was being torn apart. What are you screaming for? You want to turn yourself from a eunuch back into a man, and you want to become stronger? Do you think it's possible that you can't even endure this little pain? Wen Tao sneered, reached out his hand, and waved at Luo Tsuishan, who was watching from afar with a smile. Luo Tsuishan had changed into a fiery red nurse uniform, but her chest was purely lace, and her lower body was a miniskirt. No one knew if she was wearing underwear or not. Seeing Wen Tao's signal, Luo Tsuishan picked up a syringe filled with some kind of red drug and handed it to Wen Tao. After Wen Tao took the syringe, He took a look at Ning Guodong's crotch. He saw that between his legs, which had become a lump of rotten meat, a new huge thing had grown out of Ning Guodong's clone. It was this new huge thing that made Ning Guodong's life worse than death. This is the last dose. I modified the gene modification fluid left behind by Yin Buin. You are the first person to receive a new level of modification. You should feel honored. Wen Tao smiled proudly and was about to insert the needle into Ning Guodong's artery. At this time, Luo Tsuishan grabbed Wen Tao and pouted, "Little cripple, are you sure there's no problem? I only have this one son." Wen Tao snorted coldly and said in disdain, "What? You're starting to protect your son now, you bitch? Didn't you say you were going to cure him?" He said he wanted to become stronger, but he couldn't even carry out the first step of body modification. How could he hope to accept the antimatter power of the Divine Stone? "No, I was just thinking, you just fused with Yin Buin's memory chip, would it?" Luo Tsuishan hesitated. Wen Tao said unhappily, "You think I'm not as good as Yin Buin?" "What a joke. What do you know? All of Yin Buin's memories and knowledge are in his brain chip. Not only have I fused them according to his method, I have also done an improved experiment that he didn't have time to do. Don't you believe me?" No. Luo Tsuishan hurriedly smiled and caressed Wen Tao's chest. "I know little cripple is the strongest. Then Guodong. Just endure it for a while and it will be over soon." Seeing that Luo Tsuishan didn't stop him, Ning Guodong could only close his eyes and endure the next wave of pain. When Wen Tao injected the entire medicine into Ning Guodong's body, Ning Guodong's entire body spasmed, and he fainted from the pain. Useless," Wen Tao said disdainfully. Luo Tsuishan reached out her hand to feel Ning Guodong's breathing and pulse. After confirming that there was no problem, her gaze fell between her son's legs when she saw that Ning Guodong's new organ was so huge and thick, the woman couldn't help but stare at it. Wen Tao laughed mockingly. "What's wrong, bitch? Have you taken a fancy to your son's goods?" Luo Tsuishan's face flushed red. "How could that be? No matter what, this is my son." "That might not be the case. You've already died once and changed your flesh and blood. Even in terms of bloodline, you two are no longer mother and son." Wen Tao grinned evilly. "You're only mother and son in name." Luo Tsuishan swallowed her saliva. A hint of desire flashed in her eyes, and she started to pant. Wen Tao seemed to be very happy to see this happen and hoped to see the mother and son put on an erotic show. He continued to tempt her. Right now, Ning Guodong's body is in a state of extreme excitement. "Look, that rod of his has been growing there. If you go and try it now, I'm afraid you won't be able to rest for at least 2 hours. Don't you like strong men? This is just right." Luo Tsuishan's eyes shone with excitement. Just as she was about to reach out to touch Ning Guodong's body, she suddenly retracted her hand and shook her head. "No, he's my son." Wen Tao curled his lips, feeling extremely bored. He snorted coldly and turned around to continue his research. At this moment, the laboratory door was opened and Yang Lai rushed in from the outside. He scolded, "What the hell are you guys doing? Are you guys trying to completely destroy the Yang family?" Chapter 10:16. Seeing how aggressive Yang Lai was, Wen Tao still walked to a row of huge screens in an orderly manner. On the transparent electric keyboard, he dexterously operated the genetic engineering pattern on the screen. "What happened now?" Wen Tao said casually, bored to death. Yang Lai's facial muscles trembled. "You're still pretending not to know?" "Right now, the Yang family is a joke to the entire world. My grandfather suddenly became a bastard. Then what is the Yang family? What am I?" "Oh, is that so?" Wen Tao grinned coldly. "Isn't that good? Haven't you always hated Yang Gongming for not handing over the Yang family to you? Now that the Yang family is going to be finished sooner or later, you don't have to feel unbalanced anymore. What I want is a complete Yang family with military power, not a broken pot that will be laughed at by others. What does this have to do with us? If you have the ability, go save the Yang family yourself. That way, maybe Yang Gongming will consider letting you take over as the patriarch," Wen Tao said. Yang Lai's face flushed red. "Are you guys planning to watch a good show?" Do you think I don't know that other than you guys, who else would send people to massacre the entire Yu family in one night without batting an eyelid? You guys must have known about the Yang family's past, right? Luo Suishan chuckled. So what if I am? This method of borrowing a knife to kill someone has hit the Yang family's weakness. Didn't you always hate Yang Cheng? Now that Yang Cheng is definitely troubled by this matter, you should be happy. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? Even if you want to make a move on Yang Cheng, you shouldn't make a move on the entire Yang family. Do you guys even put me in your eyes? Yang Lai roared. Wen Tao suddenly turned around and reached out to grab Yang Lai. Before Yang Lai could react, his body suddenly changed from where he stood, and in the next second, he was already in Wen Tao's hands. Wen Tao's steel-like palm grabbed Yang Lai's neck and lifted Yang Lai's burly body up without any effort. Yang Lai only felt a terrifying coercion, even more than the antimatter energy of Yin Buin's coercion. It imprisoned him, and he could not resist at all. Who do you think you are? Why should I put you in my eyes? Wen Tao said coldly. Yang Lai opened his mouth with difficulty and spoke intermittently in a hoarse voice. You fused with Godstone. It's not just fusion. I have completed the perfect fusion plan left by Yin Buin. Now, I am Godstone, and Godstone is me. I am absorbing the antimatter energy in the universe all the time. Now, this little power is just the beginning. Humph. Even without a divine spark, I am already above the law of space. You better not make me angry. Otherwise, I can send you directly into the space crevice and disappear from the Earth forever. To be honest, I really want to experiment. With that, Wen Tao threw Yang Lai back to the ground, snorted coldly, and turned to continue his simulation experiment. Luo Sushan glanced proudly at Yang Lai on the ground, who was sweating profusely. You don't know what you're talking about. Even Yang Cheng was played by us, and you think you can do it? You'd better obediently be your dog slave. Maybe if the Yang family is gone, I can still reward you with a dog bone. Yang Lai was furious, but just as he was about to act ruthlessly, he stopped. What's wrong with me? Luo Tsuishan looked at Yang Lai's angry expression and said disdainfully, with your virtue, no wonder Yang Gongming doesn't like you. If you don't want to be a dog, you can go and tell Yang Cheng that we did this, and we are at the North Pole. Do you think I don't dare? If you dare, the first one to die will be you. Luo Tsuishan sneered. Yang Lai's face was gloomy. Indeed, he had nowhere to retreat to. He cursed in his heart that this, which was just a bitch, yet she came to mock him. However, there was nothing he could do. Sneaking a glance at Wen Tao, who was minding his own business with other experiments, Yang Lai felt a chill in his heart. Originally, this fellow was just a beggar on the streets of Zhonghai, and he was also a cripple. Unexpectedly, in less than a year, he miraculously survived the Ning family, and even managed to survive step by step. After surviving, he even obtained all of Yin Buin's painstaking efforts. It could be said that before that, as long as anyone had the slightest intention, he would die a tragic death. However, under such a risky move, he survived. Today, he seemed to have obtained all of Yin Buin's previous research through the chip in his brain. On top of that foundation, he was exploring other terrifying fields that Yin Buin was unable to complete. This person's scheming and shrewdness made Yang Lai shudder just thinking about it. If Yang Cheng's speed of growth was frightening, then Wen Tao's was simply a leap, completely exceeding the limits of imagination. Perhaps he could really kill Yang Cheng? With this thought in mind, Yang Lai could only swallow all of his anger. To him, as long as he could see Yang Cheng die, what harm was there in enduring the humiliation? At the same time, Beijing, in the Ning family's mansion, inside Ning Guangyao's study. Ning Guangyao sat on the office chair, his face as dark as ink. His brows were full of murderous intent, like a judge of the Grim Reaper. If anyone else saw Ning Guangyao at this moment, they would definitely find it hard to imagine that this was the gentle and cultured Premier Huaxia. In front of Ning Guangyao's desk, kneeling on the ground, was the head of the Ning family's bodyguards. He was a strong man in a suit, but at this moment he was trembling. What did you say? You can't find him? The head replied with a trembling voice. Master really searched everywhere. There are no records of him entering or leaving Beijing, and we can't contact him at all. It's like he disappeared from the face of the earth. I told you take good care of the young master when I wasn't around. You guys actually told me that he's gone? Who do you think he is? A stray dog or cat on the street? That's my only biological son. Ning Guangyao angrily slammed the table and stood up, pointing at the leader and cursing, "What's the use of me raising a bunch of idiots like you? How do you want me to explain this to the outside world? The only son of my dignified Ning family actually disappeared right in front of my eyes." The leader wanted to cry, but he couldn't respond to any more words. At this moment, a seemingly illusory voice came from outside the room. "All right, Guangyao, tell everyone to disperse." The man's voice carried a hint of laziness. Ning Guangyao immediately calmed himself down and gave the guards around him a few glances. All the bodyguards and maids inside and outside the house immediately retreated far away. As soon as Ning Guangyao turned around, a man with long black hair and a white jade dragon accessory hanging from his waist was already standing there. He was dressed in a long white robe with a white dragon emblem hanging from his waist. The man stood in front of the wall. On the wall, there was a slender painting. It was a painting of mountains and rivers. "Aya, this is Huang Gongwang's Fuchin mountain residence. Half of it is missing. This is an imitation, right? However, the imitation is very good. It should also be a fine work from the Qianlong period of the Qing dynasty." "Not bad, not bad." Ning Guangyao hurriedly flattered. "The fourth is right. This is also an antique item. If the fourth likes it, Guangyao will give it to the fourth." "Sai, what do I want this fake for?" The man called the fourth turned around. His face was fair and beardless, and he looked quite handsome. He smiled contentedly and said, "I've lived for almost 200 years. What good things have I not seen? If I really liked it, I would have gotten the original work back then. Our Ning family has been around for tens of thousands of years. We don't lack any antiques. It's just a small hobby in our spare time." "The fourth is right." Guangyao spoke too much. Ning Guangyao lowered his head humbly. The man took out a folding fan out of nowhere and lightly patted his palm. He paced around and said, "Your son is called Ning Guodong, right?" "That's right." Ning Guangyao's forehead was covered in cold sweat. "Can't find it." "The fourth, I will definitely send more people. Please give him a few days." "Sai, there's no rush. There's no rush." The man patted Ning Guangyao's shoulder comfortingly. "Since Guodong is also a descendant of our Ning family, it's only right for me to treat him. Thank you, the fourth, for your tolerance." Ning Guangyao wiped his cold sweat. The man smiled calmly, and a strange look flashed across his eyes. "However, Guangyao, if you can't find it, it means that your bloodline has no successor. Do you understand what I mean?"